22 teams on the start line, the very latest to arrive, still out of breath, fresh from the beach, Alberto Contador and Team Astana. And this is the start here of the Team Milram.
Well, Team Milram, based around the German structure originally, I have to say our riders who are great specialists at this kind of event. But the early times really, Phil, are more important because those are the benchmark for everybody else. And coming up to the line, Sonia Duval posted a pretty good time, but it was then a little bit later on that Team Slipstream came up.
Well, this is Slipstream approaching now, 26 minutes 21. This is going to be a bit of a surprise if they come in with the best time. It looks like they are. Christian van der Velde is leading them up to the line. Tinkoff is the time to beat. 27.05. They've annihilated that time by 33 seconds. And look at that average speed, 53.366 kilometres an hour.
That's an impressive performance. In fact, I think this man must have been a fairly integral part of that, because this is David Miller, the British road racing and time trial champion. The fact that he's been dropped, Phil, indicates he must have put in a fast turn to help the team post that very fast time.
Well, it's very typical if Miller's done that, and I think you're probably right. He certainly will finish quite a way down overall. Remember the time taken on the fifth rider of the team. CSC are going to run Slipstream Chipotle close. This is the check at 10 kilometres. There are only 8 seconds in it, and so they're going to push that ride very close now by Slipstream, who I'd imagine are quite nervous just now as they sit on top of the leaderboard.
Yes, you can see the Australian time trial champion over on the left-hand side there. And they really are a well-drilled squad, Team CSC. I think Phil have got the ability to finish this off properly.
This is the situation. Team CSC, 26.32. Sorry, 6 seconds. They've come in with the time just 6 seconds off, so they did get quicker, but not quick enough. High Road in third place at 7 seconds. Liquigas is in fourth. But there's a little bit of history here. A pink jersey for Christian van der Velde, and that really is something of a surprise, but a very welcome one. 20 years after Andy Hampson won the Giro d'Italia, and the American is in pink again. And there's confirmation of that at all the same time, of course, as the teams who finished alongside van der Velde, riders rather, they get the same time here. Onward we go. First stage on the open roads. We stay on the island here of Sicily for 207 kilometres.
A very testing route for the riders as well, with a few nasty little climbs out to test their legs on the first real day on the open road of the Giro d'Italia. As you can see, they pretty much cross right over the centre of the city and almost circumnavigate the finishing town of Agrigento, which hosted the World Championships way back in 1995.
Proud moments for the man in pink, and a wry smile there from van der Velde. On top of the 196 riders, a quick glimpse there of Magnus Bagstedt of Sweden as well.
Team Navigari. Euskaltel Euskadi is a team that I would expect to ride well down towards the end of the Giro d'Italia. As always, Phil, it's a very difficult finale, a very difficult final week of the Giro d'Italia, and that's what a lot of these riders are all banking on. That's where I reckon the big decisions will be made. Just a quick glimpse of Emmanuel Seller there checking in, and this is Team Gerolsteiner.
This is where they all sign in, all smiles, facing up to 3 weeks now. Baden Cook there. As the riders now, they all look pretty happy. Pelazzotti, he's expecting a good performance in this year's Giro d'Italia, at least that's what he tells us. As they roll away, 196 riders then, heading not far away to Agrigento, 207 kilometres.
A lot of nervousness on the first day of a big grand tour like this. The first day out on the open road, I have to say, and that's why, Phil, because of the crashes. Everybody's very nervous on the first day. I can't see who that bike belongs to, actually. In fact, that looks like Dave Zabriskie.
Oh, well, that's really sad. Now, that's happened as they're approaching. See a railroad crossing there? And he's gone off, and he doesn't look at all good. And that is out. Well, that is terribly, terribly sad for Slipstream Chipotle, Paul. They're in the pink, and Zabriskie, a powerhouse in that team time trial, already out of the Giro. What a great shame.
Definitely, I think Dave Zabriskie would be looking to try and ride as he did a little while back in the Giro d'Italia. We're now 3.9 kilometres to go to the finish. You can see the organisation at the front end of the main field. Everybody is doing an impressive job here, trying to keep the sprinters up at the front and out of trouble.
Well, they've only had one serious break all day, and he's been swept up now. He was Dioniso Galperoso, one of the Euskaltel riders. He never got very far ahead, but he was the first attack of this year's Giro d'Italia, and sadly Dave Zabriskie looks like being the first retirement there. and that's going to be a big blow to Slipstream. What a sad day in defence of the Maglia Rosa, which will be up for grabs now with the sprint finish, I think.
It certainly will. You can see the organisation at the front end of the main field. I'm looking to see which of the sprinters are riding. There's the world champion, Paolo Bettini, not too far away from the front end of the main field. He's going to like this finish here towards the end today, Phil. It's got a slight climb with around about 500 metres to go, and that's the kind of finish that Paolo Bettini likes. Currently sitting there in 5th position.
Well, pretty warm condition down the island, but the weather itself not looking like it should be down in Sicily at this time of the year. But there's plenty of riders here believe they've got the sprinters to finish this off. But they might get a nasty surprise here. As Paul has said, it isn't a flat sprinters running. It's this long, steady climb. So high-speed tempo riding at the front might shatter this peloton.
You might have noticed one or two riders, in fact, tailing off the back there. Jelle Karlström, one of the riders from Team Liquigas, was in a little bit of difficulty there. I would have expected to see him at the front end of the main field, maybe looking after Daniele Benati, the big sprinter from this squad.
And there you can see it kick up a little bit now. The fans running up the hill there to see them for a second time as they come round a brilliant horseshoe corner there. And that peloton now is stringing out. And I think the sprinters are going to find themselves out of the hunt here.
Yes, it's definitely a Paolo Bettini type finish here this afternoon. There you can see the temples at the top. This is known as the Valley of the Temples in Agrigento. And this is the same climb that was used in the World Championships when that was won by the Frenchman Luc Leblanc on that occasion.
Going back a long way there, Paul.
I know, 1995. Well, there you can see David Rebellin. It's also a good type of finish for David Rebellin, Phil. A little kick up down towards the end. It might suit him.
I don't know if you caught a glimpse of Contador's face on the left of our picture there. He was really hurting, but holding his position near the front. The story goes he was lying on the beach when Johan Brunel said that they had a late invitation to the Giro d'Italia, and he was in the squad. He's coming here, and he'll just see how he goes, I think. And count every day as it comes.
Well, I wonder if that invitation by the organisers of the Giro d'Italia might prompt the Tour de France, Phil, to change their tune and maybe with a good performance by Team Astana here, invite that team to the Tour de France. After all, Alberto Contador is the defending champion of the Tour.
Well, it's an interesting thought, but the Tour de France have rarely, if ever, gone back on their decisions. We'll find out soon.
Danilo Di Luca there at the tail of the riders in the white jerseys of LPR. Also the kind of finish for a man like him, a defending champion in the Giro d'Italia, and he's sent all of his boys to the front. Look at that, followed by Rebellin, followed by Paolo Bettini, and a little bit further back here you can see just climbing in there, 213. That in fact is Luca Mazzanti, and he's quite a good finisher too. 1.9 kilometres to go to the finish. This, Phil, is a very difficult end to the first stage on the road.
Now, Bettini, I think you picked a good one because he's holding position here and just letting the riders set the pace for Danilo Di Luca. There's Di Luca again, the killer, and he looks as pretty determined. It'll be a good start for him. He's hoping to have a very good Giro. He's come close.
Riding at the front there as well, just on the far side in the yellow jersey of Saunier Duval alongside Alberto Contador is Riccardo Riccò. Now he's a good tip for a victory here as well. This, I think, Phil, is going to be the kind of finish for the men who know how to jump out of the pack down towards the end of a very difficult climb. This climb, in fact, is around about 3 kilometres in length from the bottom up to the summit where the finish line is, but it's the last 500 metres which really start to get grippy.
Danilo Di Luca, proudly wearing number 1 as the winner of this race a year ago, and looks like he might be seeking out a pink jersey to start off this one too. The champion of Italy is slipping off the back there, so this high-tempo riding, there's a big group holding the pace, but they're all having to be playing the bridegroom here to some terrific teamwork by LPR. This is never, no way, going to be a bunch sprint now as they start to continue the climb to the summit.
Well, you can see Rebellin locked onto the wheel there of Danilo Di Luca. He's a good finisher, a very seasoned campaigner, David Rebellin. He knows how to finish from a group like this. But still, it's LPR got pretty much control at the front end of the main field. One or two riders trying to slip in. There's Pelizzotti. He's riding at the front. I don't think really, Phil, to try and win the stage here this afternoon, but what he's thinking about is making sure he doesn't lose any time, silly time, on the first day out on the open road, because at the end of the day, the Giro d'Italia is a 3-week event, and it's all about not losing time.
It's a big effort, this, by Team LPR. They must have known this finishing climb. The riders coming early enough to go and have a look at it. But Di Luca wants to make an early impression as last year's winner. We haven't seen anything today of the pink jersey on the shoulders of Christian van der Velde, by virtue of the fact he led the team home in the team time trial yesterday. They've already lost a man in Dave Zabriskie, And that'll hurt the team as we go throughout the next 3 weeks. The big sting in the tail is the final week here. And a late attack here. Rodriguez, I think it is, the champion of Spain, has gone.
Well, that's a nice move by him. He's caught them all unawares. I think they've just gone inside the final kilometre there, so this is a tough move by the Spanish champion.
Huge effort.
He knows now that he's got to do or die there on the front end of the main field. Looks like Leonardo Pipoli. He's doing the work for his teammate Riccardo Riccò there in second position. Rebellin is still locked solid right in the middle of that field. Well, Phil, just waiting to jump.
Well, this is a very, very brave and ambitious move here, and he's gone early enough, and he caught Team LPR. They couldn't control it. They have split the peloton in the pursuit, and it's the double-headed Sony Duval team here who are sitting on the front, and De Luca is still holding position behind the two riders from Sony Duval.
Right in there as well was Paolo Salvadelli for Team LPR, so they've got two riders they can try and work this one out, and I think it's just a little bit too hard there for Paolo Bettini, the world champion.
Sign the form's not quite there, I would suggest. It would have been a perfect finish for him, but the cricket's not finding his legs to jump with. And Rodriguez continues here as they start to close in, but they may have left this too late. This could be a terrific opening for the champion of Spain. One LPR rider left, and he's giving it his best shot here. De Luca's waiting.
That's Paolo Salvadelli. He's actually sacrificing himself here for Danilo Di Luca, and the reason he's doing that is because they've got to pull this man, Joaquim Rodriguez, back into the fold if they want to get the victory. But you can see the pressure here, Phil. It's actually split the field dramatically on this run up to the line.
A last effort by Falco to shut it down. Rodriguez has been nailed back at 75 metres to go. The sprint has started. Riccardo Riccò is taking the benefit of the lead out from Pipoli, and he's taking it on the line. And that was De Luca, who couldn't get round Riccò. Will have to be content with second. And it looks like it was Gerolsteiner's Rebellin who probably got third. There's the pink jersey of Christian van der Velde. About 11 seconds back, Paul, so he's out of that jersey.
Well, I'm pretty certain he's going to be out of that jersey. And there's compliments to the victory for Sony Duval. And that was a great lead out by Leonardo Pipoli. But the victory going to Riccardo Riccò, the new kid on the block. The Cobra is his nickname. And look at this. This is why they call him the Cobra, because when he comes out of the saddle, he's got a real bite and an attack.
Well, I'll tell you what, that really was the time to strike as he came in, but it was Team LPR all the way up that climb, and it was a long finishing climb, and they just gave the race to Riccò because De Luca at the end couldn't get round him. Look at this.
And look at David Rebellin on the far side as well. They don't have the younger legs of Riccardo Riccò to explode out of the pack there. We're going to have to wait a little bit of time though, Phil. Although Riccardo Riccò is the man who gets himself the victory of the stage, we're going to have to do some counting to see who's going to take over the Maglia Rosa, because there's some serious time gaps at the end of this first stage on the open road.
Yes, and they will put in the time gaps today because it was a hill finish as far as they are concerned. The big hills coming in the final week. There's the result. Riccò ahead of De Luca, Rebellin. Pelazzotti, good finish for him for Liquigas. And Salvadelli, that big lead out, and still managed a fifth place finish. Now the question is, what is the overall situation? Because there'll be nothing in it. There's Riccò. These giant bottles of champagne.
Young rider Riccardo Riccò.
And there's Pelazzotti.
Well, by 1 second over Van der Velde. Poor old Van der Velde.
Just that sprint to the line cost him. If he could have just come a second better, he'd have kept that pink jersey. So still second place at the moment, and Sorensen is in third place there. Pelazzotti said before this race begun, this was his target this year, and he's off to a great start. On we go, still on the island of Sicily, and a long stage now of 221 kilometres here. And the ride's beginning to get used to the island a little bit now, and it's not a flat island as we've now seen. And heading away from Catania to Milazzo.
Well, after a fairly lumpy start on this 221 kilometre route, they stick alongside the coast for the rest of the afternoon, and a little bit of a circuitous finish down towards the finish line as well. Oh, there's a crash there. A nasty crash. In fact, this is a massive pile-up. Well, this is what the Giro d'Italia, Phil, is all about. There are crashes all over the place.
There's riders lost concentration at the front. David Miller is down. He's picking himself up at the bottom of our picture there. A lot of the slipstream boys are in that crash at the moment.
CSC
a lot of
got
Lamprey riders too, and CSC.
Two riders from Team CSC down there. That's Miller in the red, white and blue jersey.
Well, another one down there is Patrick McCarthy of the USA. He's also down for slipstream. And it looks as though we've got here rather sad sight here, because this is one of the Team Hyro riders.
That's Greipel, the big sprinter from their squad. He's gone down very heavy. There's still, Phil, a couple of riders down on the ground. That was an amazing crash, a very strange crash. One rider stopped at the front. He went down, and in fact, you can see here that Riccò has gone down as well. He's wearing the Ciclamina jersey as the leader of this competition on the points. But, you know, I don't think he's going to get himself back into the race, Phil.
Well, he's not going to get any pink jersey now to replace the Ciclamino, because he's losing time here. There was one rider touched the wheellock, and the bunch had nowhere to go.
Well, it was all then really a question of panic. I think looking back, there were one or two riders touched the brakes. There's a slight film of humidity on the road, and I think that may be what caused it as well. And there's another crash going down. The Giro d'Italia is so nervous that everybody wants to ride near the front end of the main field, and I have to say, I'm not sure that these roads in Sicily are all that good. There's a CSC rider down there. That looks that the big rider could very well be Bradley McGee.
Well, he was looking as though he might have been unconscious there, though. He's just keeping himself tucked in because of the riders still to come by.
Well, Magnus Backstedt has gone down there as well. There's the Swedish national champion, but that rider from CSC, Phil, is still down on the ground.
I'm just trying to see if we can see a number on his bike there, because I certainly can't recognise him at the moment. But this is, again, another bad shunt. And in fact, it is Brad McGee, Paul. That's without doubt Brad McGee. He's had his ups and downs, and he's not really regained his form from when he damaged his back lifting a flower pot at his home in Nice a couple of years ago. Let's have a look again. All eyes to the right, skidded nastily. That was a very, very heavy fall there. He got into the dirt. The bike came back into the race, and that caused then the ultimate crashes. These are horrendous pile-ups at the moment.
Well, it really is quite amazing. It wasn't Bradley McGee who went down first.
No,
the rider over on the right-hand side exited the road, but it was his bike that catapulted into the main field that brought down the rest of these guys.
Yeah, one or two managed to step off the bike rather sharpish there, which was rather lucky. McGee got caught up by the bike that was lying in the peloton as they came round the bend.
That looks like Stuart O'Grady as well at the side of the road there.
And there's McGee still on the floor.
McGee is trying to get himself back to his senses. The race doctor there very quickly alongside him. 192 is McGee, but I have a feeling, Phil, just over to the left-hand side, I saw another Team CSC rider just standing there waiting.
I'm pretty sure it was Stuart O'Grady. And it doesn't look as though McGee is going to continue here. The race is, though, and despite all the crashes, there's a big peloton here charging down towards the finish. Remember, it's 221 kilometres to cover. We've only got 3 of them left, and what sprinters there are left in here might have a chance now.
Well, Andre Greipel probably won't be thinking about the sprint for Team High Road here this afternoon, Phil, because he was involved in that very nasty accident. You can see Milram have got themselves pretty much organised. Up to the front end of the field there is a rider from Team Slipstream as well. The Milram rider swing off. Paolo Bettini, world champion, still in there thinking about the possibility of an early victory. He really hasn't had the success that he's had over the last couple of seasons. I think that World Championships jersey is starting to feel a little bit heavy on his shoulders.
Well, McGee, we're hearing, has in fact gone to hospital, so he is out of the Giro. Another rider we know has crashed too is Maurizio Sola, the sensation of last year's Tour de France, and is reportedly limping in behind the race with a suspected broken wrist. Well, this is a very sad start as well for Team Barlow World. Just look how narrow the approach is down the coast here on Sicily.
Well, you've got to be a brave man to stay at the front end of the main field, especially when you're running in towards the finish line. There's a rider from Team High Road sitting right up at the front end of the main field, but there's no real team, Phil, got control of the front end of the peloton. Moving up there on the right-hand side, you can see Milram, and they're trying to get their man organised. Milram have got a very good, it looks to me like it's Van der Velde riding at the front there for Team Slipstream.
He's certainly got some legs in this race. He's come here with terrific form, and he's going to be a real boost from his first day team time trial win. It's a late attack here, and this is a time to go 2 kilometres. It's not a hill finish, this one, though, and they're going to come back at him, I think.
Well, it's a nice move here by this rider from the Française des Jeux, and this looks like Lilian Jégou, who's got himself off the front end of the main field. He's hit these riders very hard. He's 109th in the overall classification, but you see High Road have nailed it back here, Phil. They've pulled them all back together. I think the teams of the sprinters want to have their day here. Not too far away from the front, I noticed Eric Zabel looking very attentive. In his last year as a professional cyclist, he'll be looking for a victory.
Well, Team High Road have got Mark Cavendish in the Giro. I'm just wondering how far he will go, because the Tour de France is ahead, the Olympics are ahead. It's a busy year for Mark, and we'll see how he gets on. He has said he wants to go the distance, but we'll see how he manages the last week.
Well, the reason he said that was what he wants to do, Phil, is he wants to learn and find out. This is the argy-bargy at the front
Thomas Fotes and that, and there's another one.
Yeah, excuse me, I'm coming by. I want to keep my place at the front end of the main field. The man giving out the argy-bargy there is Danilo Hondo, a man who has had his ups and downs in the sport, but he's fighting to hold his position at the front end of the main field and probably not making too many friends with that.
No, and a big lead out now for Team Miller. Remember, Eric Zabel in what probably his last Giro d'Italia here. There's talk he will finally, sooner or later, announce his retirement. And he'll see if he can get into the picture here. Daniele Bernat and Mark Cavendish looking at the wheels there, right in the centre, in Team High Roads jersey. At 450 metres to go now. They're coming off a very tight bend there, but they're holding the inside. That's where the advantage is. I must say, the crowd a bit sparse on the rails. They're more interested in the television by the look of it. But here they are now as they come up towards the line. And Bernati's, and there's Paolo Bettini there. Bernati's waiting it well in the slipstreams, in the Liquigas colours. Bernati's gone now, and nobody's got the answer to that kick, I don't think. He's being chased by Zabel.
Another crash,
and another crash, and a touch of wheels has gone down behind us here. Bernati went a long way out, but boy, he knew he had the legs there. Zabel has got yet another second place, and I think Daniel Hondo might have been in there for third. Looks like a Team Tinkoff. I think it's Trusov who's gone down here.
Well,
looks like
a lot of riders,
those cards in his wheels on the crowd.
Yeah, well, a lot of riders were taking risks up on the inside. I think somebody actually just tried to go up alongside the barriers. It clipped the barriers and went down very hard. Well, you said the crowd was pretty sparse. It certainly isn't by the finishing line.
Finish line.
This is like Graham Brown went down there, and I think
may have been Brownie who hit the barrier there.
It was just here. There it is on the left-hand side. Yep. There is Brown coming up. There you can see Trusov trying to go up through the inside, and there's definitely no space for anybody there at all. Well, he's made space for himself, but you can see everybody's zigzagging. There's Brown coming up again, trying to get the gap. It was Brownie who was taken out by the rider from Tinkoff there.
Yeah, that was Trusov as well. He was there. Well, they just ran out of road, didn't they, really? That was a rather nasty fall. Bit hard stopping for Graham Brown, that one, as he was trying to make his run. But Bernati read it right, and that's a good victory for Daniele Bernati of Liquigas. Zabel, again, despite his age, he's almost 40 years of age, don't forget, gets a second place. Foten, despite his shoulder bouncing, coming in with a high finish as well. And there is Daniele Bernati.
Solid sprinter, Daniele Bernati. I don't think it will have any effect on the overall classification, though, Phil, because most of the leaders came into the finish line in that main field.
Surprisingly, only the second win of the year for Bernati. Pelazzotti keeps the pink jersey, same time overall, because all of these guys finishing in the same time at the head of the peloton. So Pelazzotti stays in the pink here, and he'll be pretty happy with the result as it stands just now. It's a fairly gentle start, despite all the argy-bargy we've seen, as we now head onwards from Canzentaro to Lugomare. And this is another fairly long stage, 183 kilometres. And nice and flat here, sprinter's delight along the coast, I would think.
And once again, a little circumnavigation of the town down towards the finish line. The Team Lampre all over the front end of the main field here.
Bit of a boat journey for the riders as they now have got themselves onto the mainland. There's 4 kilometres left to go here as we get a big look at the action. There hasn't been much of it out on the highway, and so they're going to get the way here. Another chance for Bernati to try and take the stage. The Lampre boys are believing there's a good result here. Looks like Baldato setting the pace at the front.
No one of the old men of the sport there sporting his famous goatee beard. He's been around for such a long time, Phil, and he's a great enthusiast. 145th overall, already 12 and a quarter minutes down. These are tough finishes of the Giro d'Italia. Again, you can see inside of the last 5 kilometres, a nasty climb to sort out the sprinters.
Well, again, Lampre, different team, a different day. We've seen Liquigas drive it home for Bernati. Now we're seeing Lampre trying to bring it home.
Euskadi, I'm surprised to see them at the front end of the main field. The average speed here at the front end of the race is only 35.5 kilometres now. That gives you an idea just how difficult it is, and it's on a gradient of around about 3% here. But Baldato, Phil, is all over the front of this.
And you were right about poor Stewie O'Grady standing by the roadside yesterday, Paul, because he didn't start this morning stage.
Must have been pretty roughed up, Stuart O'Grady, because he's a tough character.
He never packs, no.
He doesn't like to pull out of a bike race like this. Team High Road at the front end of the main field as well there, in their now very famous white jerseys. It looks as if they're trying to look after their man. I'm not sure. There's Mark Cavendish over on the left-hand side. I think it might be a little bit too hard for the young rider from the Isle of Man here this afternoon, because this is, once again, a rough ride to the finish.
Well, he's got Greeple there. There's a good lead-out man sitting just ahead of him. 2.9 kilometres left to go. He was in the mix yesterday, Cavendish, but he got washed away towards the end. And then there was that disruption in the sprint with Brown going down. It wasn't his fault. Graham's often been blamed for erratic sprinting, but that certainly wasn't his fault yesterday.
Well, High Road taking control there. I'm not quite sure who Team Lampre were trying to look after. There's the Ciclamino jersey. That's on the shoulders of Daniele Benati now this afternoon. And right on Benati's wheel there is Mark Cavendish. I think Cavendish has decided he knows who the fast man is of the Giro d'Italia here, and he's going to follow him right the way to the line. 2 kilometres to go.
Well, Cavendish, in his second season as a professional, has had a great year so far. Now, let's see what he can do in his first Giro.
Well, Liquigas, they've got the tempo nice and high, and they're going to try and keep it as fast as possible, Phil, inside of the last 2 kilometres now, because they don't want any confusion for their man there. You can see Daniele Benati moving up to the front. He's in around about 7th or 8th position. High Road have got a man up there. You see Team Milram there looking again after the hopes of Eric Zabel. One day or another, I'm sure Zabel is going to come up with a win, and never far away is the world champion Paolo Bettini.
If Zabel pulls this one off, there won't be a dry eye in that house. I think you're absolutely right. But I'm amazed he's managed to keep those twitch fibres intact at such a late stage in his sprinting career. But this is a good finish now. They come right down onto the beach almost here.
Well, he really is one of the great enthusiasts, I have to say, Eric Zabel. Competitive in the month of February and still racing in the month of October, and there's not very many professional bike riders like that. Now Milram, Phil, ultimo kilometro, the last kilometre, leading it out for Eric Zabel. There he is in 4th position at the back end of that line, and locked onto his wheel Daniele Benati in the Ciclamina jersey as the leader of the points classification. 800 metres to go.
Well, Benati is the man to beat. We saw that yesterday. Had a good pair of legs. Now Zabel is going to be cast into the wind here. Oh, there's another crash, and touch your wheel and a massive pile up behind. Now then, the riders in the breakaway all looked around. They know it's happened. They keep the pressure on. There's a split in the field now. Zabel hasn't panicked. He's held 3rd wheel. That's the devastation down the road here. And Mark Cavendish is over on the left and getting a perfect lead out here. And I think it's Greeple guiding him through to the front, and he's blocked off. And Cavendish has slipped onto the back wheel of Daniele Benati. That is a very shrewd move.
Still, you can see Milram on the front, sitting at the back there. Paolo Bettini, now he's going to make the jump if he can, but in the middle, Benati's lining himself up for this one.
In fact, it's Tony Martin who's been looking after Cavendish there, seeing him from the front. He drops away from it now, and there's the familiar sprint of Cav, and this time a clean run at line. That is a first ever stage win for Mark Cavendish in the Giro d'Italia. A tremendous result, and even the riders, including Benati, congratulating him.
Well, he really kept his wits about him there. I don't think, Phil, there's been much change in the overall classification, because that crash happened inside of the last kilometre, but look what damage it did to the main field. It split the main field completely. I'm just looking to see where the Maglia Rosa is. He certainly wasn't duking it out at the front with all of the sprinters. Looking at the faces of these riders, they know they've been in a little bit of a war of aggression here this afternoon, and it looks like somebody else is climbing away from the Giro d'Italia there. It looks a little bit like Sylvain Chavanel.
There's a Cofidis rider. This is Steve Zampieri. I think it's Steve Zampieri who's gone in there. Oh, and that was the touch of wheels, and that was caused by Zampieri, in fact.
Yes, he went down very hard and created complete and utter chaos over there on the right-hand side. But look how the sprinters are so concentrated, they don't even react. Hardly looking over their shoulders, they will have heard the grinding of steel on the tarmac behind them, and then all of a sudden they just get on with the job at hand. Not even a flinch from Benati there, locked onto the wheel of Eric Zabel, and at this point you can't even see Cavendish, then bang! Out he comes from the pack. This man really is like a Manx cat, isn't he? He can explode like nobody I've seen sprinting over the last few years. I think we're going to see a lot more from Mark Cavendish this year.
And see, he just tucked in behind Robbie McEwen, but he didn't have the legs to come out of the slipstream of that sprint. Left in the wash of the man who said he's modelled himself on Robbie McEwen. Mark Cavendish gets the stage win. Robert Foster is second, Bernardi third in the end on the photo, Basayev in fourth, and Lorenzetto from Lamprey, they worked for him well today, came home in fifth. The man from the Isle of Man, and what a season he is having.
Yes, it seems an awful long time ago that he was disqualified from a stage victory in the Tour of California when he got back into the main field in dubious circumstances as far as the judges were concerned. But, I mean, the sprint he unleashed on that occasion told me that this man is going to be a great man for the future of sprinting. And really, Phil, no change at all, still in the overall classification, still a single second behind for Christian van der Velde.
Yeah, as far as the top three are concerned, Personi and Nibali have moved in a little bit there, but they're at 8 seconds. Just a gentle reshuffling, nothing in it, as we're heading up towards stage 5 now. Pellisotti enjoying the Giro d'Italia as he stays in pink here. The next stage is another one over 200 kilometres as we go up to the thermal town of Contursi. From Belvedere Marittimo. We're still sort of staying on the coast, but then we cut in. A few ripples on the course today as we head up towards the thermal city here. This is quite a long race. It's the second longest we've had so far. Well, the third really, because I guess one was 4 kilometres longer on day 2. David Miller on the front.
This is a slight breakaway here that David Miller's got himself into. And he's not going to rattle, I don't think, the overall classification at all here, Phil, because he's already lost himself a fair amount of time. 3 kilometres to go for this small group, and the front end of the main field controlled there by Liquigas. In the Ciclamina jersey is Daniele Bernardi. In the Maglia Rosa is his teammate Franco Pellizotti. Well, having a look here, that looks like a Pavel Brut there from Team Tinkoff.
Yeah.
They've got themselves around about a 45-second advantage here, and I think if they keep themselves working together, they've got a very good chance of holding out for the win, and David Miller is looking very comfortable.
Well, the peloton, and it might be a good breakaway, this one. It might well hold out because there's no big reason for Pellizotti to start chasing it down just yet.
The rider in here is Luis Laverde, just on the far side. He's the rider in the green and orange strip of Navigari. He's a crafty sprinter when it comes down towards the end, and they're all now thinking about the stage victory here this afternoon. Laverde there not showing any signs at all of panic on his face. David Miller looking very comfortable, got a nice low gear in, keeping it ticking over. It looks very concentrated and very fit, David Miller, this year.
Yeah. By the way, it was Nick Noyens in all that kerfuffle yesterday who climbed into the ambulance and fell in the finishing sprint, and he's in hospital now. He didn't start this morning. Suspected broken collarbone there for Noyens, which is very sad. But we've certainly had our fair share of accidents in these opening days of the Giro d'Italia this year.
Well, these guys started the final climb, Phil, with an advantage of 45 seconds. They're slowing down a little bit now. I've got a last time check at 35 seconds. And they don't need to mess around too much, because on this run up towards the finish, the main field could easily wipe away that final 30 seconds advantage they're still holding on to.
Well, Pellisotti won't allow the breakaway to run too far. There's nobody here that will take his pink jersey off him, but he'll want to close it down a little bit. And Miller, I think, just trying to control affairs a little bit.
Watch out for Sanchez, though, there at the back, Phil. Francisco Perez Sanchez, I have to say. He's a good rider from Case d'Espagna, and he's got a very good chance there of creating the surprise. But I wouldn't be surprised to see a move coming from that man there, number 64, Luis Laverde. He's a very good finisher on a climb like this, but the main field now is starting to get themselves pretty much organised, and I'm wondering whether or not they've left it too late.
Well, they've got a good tempo going here now, and they might well close it down. These boys are going nothing like the speed of the peloton, who are coming back at them. They're only around about 40 seconds back down the road there.
The rider in the pale blue jersey there is Johannes Frolinger. He's a young rider on Team Gerolsteiner, and he's probably wondering to himself, what am I doing in a breakaway like this? I've got a great crack here of getting a stage victory in the Giro d'Italia. Miller, no stranger to victories in Grand Tours. He's won a stage victory in the Vuelta a España. He's won stage victories in the Tour de France, and now he's lining himself up, Phil, for a stage victory here at the Giro.
Well, that'd be a great result for Davy Miller, and it would continue the success of Slipstream Chipotle.
Frollinger's gone. There he is.
Well, somebody had to go, and there's a reaction from Pavel Brut. Certainly, here he comes. He's going to get his back wheel. Miller, I think that is peeping in. So we've got 3 now, but instead of looking over the shoulder, they really should push home the attack, because there is the counter move from Perez.
Good move by Perez. He's a strong rider. You've got to be alert, and Miller is very alert here, Phil. He's not going to let anybody slip away on the run in towards the finish. He's got the ability to take this one in the sprint, but watch out for Laverde there. He is the man who could create the big surprise in this group. Miller looking over at the other riders. He's being confident now. They're saying that the gap, in fact, has stretched up to 1 minute and 5 seconds. Well, if that's the true time gap that they've got over the main field, Phil, they should dispute the stage victory now. But it's going to be a massive charge to the line behind there. You can see Pelazzotti looking comfortable there in his Maglia Rossa. Paolo Bettini again thinking about a victory here, but I think today they've left it just a little bit too late.
Well, Nibali, who's moved up into the top 6 overall, that was him lying in the lead there at the moment, so he's not thinking of a high finish, he's thinking of his team. And the other one is the ever-faithful Andrea Noe. He was setting the pace there as well.
They're messing about a bit now, Phil. Francesco Perez here looking over his shoulder. And this is the time when they're going to see an awful lot of that advantage. Oh, what's happened there to Miller? His foot's come out of his pedal there.
Well, I'm not sure. Surely. And there goes the bike. Something's happened, and that is not a little bit uncharacteristic throw of the bike there. So the bike is broken, and he was planning on making a move, and he's out of it, and he won't even make the result now. He's left standing in the road, and Pavel Brut, the lone brake expert, we've seen him do this in lots of races around the world, including the Tour de Langkawi in Malaysia. But is this one going to be a result for the team? Because normally they nail him back.
Well, they're not going to now. They're zigzagging across the road there. Perez is looking for some help from Laverde, who's not giving anything. Frolinger, I think, just happy to be in the group.
It's gone.
And Brut has got a massive advantage there, at least 5 or 6 seconds.
Oh, but what about poor David Miller? Slipstream Potley are having some rotten luck since they had the first day success in the team time trial. That's the move as well, and this again is Frolinger, who's got clear, so he might well get second place. Boy, those legs have gone on Pavel's, but he's still hanging in there. It must be the longest 800 metres he's ever ridden this, as he comes up, because the breakaway, though, is going to succeed. The peloton are closing in, but not quick enough.
Oh, he's all over the bike now, Pavel Brut there, as he goes inside of 300 metres to go. Frolinger trying to get himself second place. The Spanish-speaking riders there, Perez and Laverde from Colombia, well, I think, Phil, they're just happy to get third and fourth here this afternoon. But I have to say, for Pavel Brut, he's just saying to himself, please, will this line come a little bit quicker?
Well, this, whatever happens now, is going to be a victory for Pavel Brut and a big result for the Tinkoff team, because it's their first ever big stage win. As he hangs on, and he is hanging on, but it seemed an awful long 900 metres to me, that. But anyway, he's just about going to make it before he collapse in a heap. And
Frollinger's coming.
He's going to hold on to second, and the third place rider will be Laverde, because they've completely split each other up. And way down the road, Miller will trickle in, I would think, behind the peloton.
Well, that was a long time coming for Pavel Brut. You can hardly salute the crowd there. Frolinger bangs the handlebars in second place. Laverde, well, he has to be content there with third.
And that'll make Perez to cross the line in fourth, because the peloton haven't picked him up. Time gap counting. Big effort, that. And it really was not a sprinter's finish in any case. The peloton must have known that.
Well, one has to wonder what has happened to David Miller. Did he get a spare bike? Paolo Bettini at the front of the main field. In fact, getting himself fifth place there, and still yellow Maglia Rossa at the front end of the main field. Still, Phil, no sign of David Miller.
I reckon it was a top 9 finish there for Pelazzotti, so he'll keep his pink jersey. And you're right, David Miller, I don't see him at all. So having been in the chance of victory, and I think he was about to make his move, whatever he did there, and he may have broken a rear sprocket, or a chain may have gone. I didn't see the chain drop up, but it may have gone.
It was difficult to see, but he obviously was not very happy about it at all. It looked as if his foot had come out of the pedal. He did well, in fact, to stay upright.
He did.
And I can understand the little move. And let's just have a look at it again, because his foot came out of the pedal. He's looking down. In fact, you can just see the chain is actually dangling there.
Oh, it is broken.
Oh, I think everything else is broken now too.
New bike required now.
I hope we had insurance for that.
Yeah, that's very sad though, because Miller had a real shot there, and he knows it. And these big chances don't come too often. That was a big one for David Miller.
Well, I have to say, I have a feeling that Miller probably was the freshest rider in that group, but ifs and buts. The if is he'd got to the finish line. Could he have won the race? But Pavel Brut here that we're looking at, he certainly has got himself a victory. And I have to say, that's a reward for Team Tinkoff, because to me they've been one of the aggressive teams so far in the season.
Yes, a good result for Tinkoff. First big stage win for them. Freilinger at 4 seconds, Laverde at 10, all split. Bettini brings the peloton home at 31 seconds. And in fact, further down, 8th place for Pelazzotti. So that means he'll keep his pink jersey. But first of all, the champagne, as big as it is, going on the shoulders of the Russian. And there's the confirmation. Again, no change in the top 5.
Well, I'm impressed with Van der Velde, Phil, because he keeps up there every day. He's apart from that first day when he missed the split, he's always stayed in contention, and he keeps himself high up in the overall classification. But you can see Paolo Silvadelli, he's looking a threat in 8th place, and Andrea Noe, he's still up there.
The ever-present Noe. This is the one race of the year he always puts his name up amongst the leaders. Onward we go to stage number 6 now. A long one, the longest stage of this year's Giro at 231 kilometres. And the riders getting off to a hilly start here as they start to roll down towards the coast, and then it settles down a little bit. Again, the weather looks as though it's okay, and then we circumnavigate the finish to come in to cross the line there in Peshkiki.
Well, breakaway, they've got an advantage of 15 minutes over the front end of the main field, and none of these riders at all feel very dangerous in the overall classification of the race. Iglinski in there, Anton Perez is in here, Gavazzi, Visconti just sitting at the back there, the Italian national champion, Daniele Nardello, a man who I thought was looking at retirement during the winter off-season, but in fact he has managed to find himself a last ride here. Matthias Rus, by the way, is the virtual leader on the road, but I don't think they regard him, Phil, as being a man who is extremely dangerous in the overall classification.
Well, it'll be a question of who finishes in front of whom there, Paul, because Visconti is also on the same time as Matthias Rus. So those two riders are going for the pink jersey, the Maglia Rosa. And it looks as though Pelazzotti has been caught out here because that break has been given far too much of a lead, and now it's beginning to split up as well.
The move there coming from, looked like Anton, who'd got himself off the front there for Team Euskaltel-Euskadi, but the rest of the group not really very far behind. They certainly have, I think, decided to have a day off. I don't think they really regard very much the chances long-term of riders like Visconti or Matthias Rus. And that's maybe why they've given them that advantage. But in fact, the main field have started to pick up the pace a bit, Phil, because they've axed that 15-minute advantage now down to 12 minutes and 8 seconds. And it's still a fair run towards the finish.
Well, it's got to come down. One would expect it to come down, but Pelazzotti is going to feel pretty lonely back there right now because he's got nobody to really help him.
Francesco Gavazzi was the rider from Lampre there, whipping it up at the front of the group to try and pull these two riders back into the fold. 7.9 kilometres to go to the finish.
And that gap is still over 11 minutes, so they're not coming back, that's for sure, and we're looking for a new pink jersey, and it's got to be between Rus and Visconti. Wouldn't that be a reward to wear the Italian Championship jersey and then pull on a Maglia Rosa?
Absolutely. This is Priamo, and Anton Perez, in fact, is the rider from Euskaltel-Euskadi to get into this move. They've not got much of an advantage over the front end of the main field, but they're just hoping to try and get themselves a stage victory if they can. I think they're leading that group behind, Phil, by around about 25 seconds, so it really is not very much at inside of 8 kilometres to go.
No, it's a long downhill stretch here, and as you can see, the breakaway knows now it's not going to be caught, and they're allowing the first and second places to run, so they really should start chasing, because this is a big reward now for what has been, starting the day, a very ambitious breakaway. But for some reason, the race never got to grips with this breakaway. They gave it over 15 minutes, and they're still holding virtually the lot because they're at least 12 minutes in front.
Well, if you want to split the screen into 4 places, there's Robbie McEwen down on the bottom right-hand side. He's not too concerned this afternoon. That's Denny Menshov at bottom left-hand corner. He's a candidate for victory in this year's Giro d'Italia. A tough man, the tough man from Russia. The beautiful views of the main field, or the breakaway, top left, and of course the two leaders top right. Complicated, isn't it?
It is complicated, and the face on Menshov there, very calm and relaxed, but he must know that this day hasn't gone well for the favourites. They've allowed a breakaway to go clear by far too much. The only good news is I can't see anybody in that breakaway capable of winning the Tour overall, and that's probably what they're thinking right now.
Yes, that's the important thing when you look at trying to win a bike race like the Giro d'Italia, Phil. Overall, you've got to make sure that you dose your efforts over the full 3 weeks, and everybody knows that the last week of the Giro d'Italia is always a killer.
As far as location goes, we've crossed right over the peninsula of Italy now. We've raced up from the toe. We've gone off from the west side. We're coming onto the east side to finish today. Before we continue our journey, zigzagging the way up the boot, heading up towards the mountain the last week. A little bit of bunny hopping here. Always worries me when I see that.
A little bit of Giro d'Italia chaos. These two riders have got 19 seconds over the remnants of the breakaway. The race referee going by there, he obviously thinks they've got a chance of victory here this afternoon, so he's going to go up there to keep a slightly closer eye on it. Neutral service car going too, so it must be getting close to 30 seconds.
Well, Visconti there looking at everybody. There's the composition of the chasers here, and it's looking really quite difficult. 5 kilometres left to ride. Visconti wants more speed from anybody else. He's going to feel pretty happy. He's just got to keep an eye on Roos, the Gerolstein rider, because one or the other will be in pink tonight, and the Italian champion would rather fancy that, I'm pretty sure.
Well, just to give Daniele Nardello a quick mention as he's 20 seconds in arrears, I'll just try and read his team name this year, Phil. He's riding for Serramenti, PVC, Diqui Giovanni, Androni Giocattoli. Not easy to say in a bunch sprint, is it?
I preferred the old team name of Sella Italia, but we'll have to go with Serramenti now.
I think I'm still going to call him Sella Italia. It's a lot easier. You can see this is Priamo here, a big bike rider, and he's putting young Perez into a little bit of difficulty here. You can see the pressure that Perez is trying to put into those legs of his just to stay 20 seconds off the front end. At a moment like this, you've got to give everything that you've got left in your body, because an example like this of a possibility of winning a stage in a Grand Tour doesn't come up every day.
No, it doesn't. And Priamo, who is quite prepared to set the pace here, we really didn't know anything about him until earlier this year, but in April he won 2 stages of the Presidential Tour of Turkey, and that put him on the radar, and it looks as though he's bringing that form from Turkey here into the early days of the Giro.
Visconti just pulling across there in the tricolour jersey of the Italian national champion, and he must be a little bit frustrated here, because not only is he possibly looking at the Maglia Rosa at the end of the day, Phil, he certainly would like to have tried to get himself a stage victory with Maglia Tricolor on his shoulders. But the impetus has gone out of this leading chase group now. I think they're resolved to finishing in third position.
Well, there's a lot of time coming the way of Roos and of Visconti, but I would have thought they would have continued to drive at the front and fight it out, because time is of the essence for that group right now, even though they've got plenty of it. The last reports, 12 minutes to the main field, which is amazing.
Big Maggie Backstead there making a move. We hadn't seen very much of him working in this group, but he's now decided this is the chance for him to get across the gap. Slipstream once again, Phil, being attentive in the moves on these early days of the Giro d'Italia. And let's not forget, they started off with the first Maglia Rosa on the shoulders of Christian van der Velde.
And it'll be the third change today, because it'll go on to a different pair of shoulders. Pelazzotti surrendering it rather meekly on what has not been a difficult stage, but an early breakaway, built the time, and they stayed away. And probably the reason of his success is so many different teams represented in the breakaway and nobody left to chase.
Well, Backstead has got himself halfway across the gap there, but look how far down he is so far in the overall classification. 160th overall for Big Maggie, and almost 30 minutes down before we've even got to the mountains.
Well, he's going to pull back at least 10 minutes of that by the look of it here. A lot of lovely vista this is now as we come over the top of this rolling hill. These two boys are thinking we might have this with a bit of luck, because they're not getting any closer to them at all.
As much as Perez looks to be suffering inside of 2 kilometres to go to the finish, he's still prepared to come to the front. He knows that they've got to give their all now, because if they start to play around and start the little cat and mouse tactics that you very often see at the end of a stage like this, they will lose that 20 seconds in the blink of an eye. And in fact, I reckon, just looking down there, I've lost sight of Magnus Backstead. He was halfway across the gap. There are the two leaders. As we pull back, I'm looking to see where Maggie Backstead is. That's a motorbike, and that is Big Maggie himself. So still in third position on the road, but he's not, in fact, eating very rapidly into that advantage of those two leaders.
1,900 kilometres, 1,900 metres, I think that sign says.
I think it's 1,900 kilometres to Milano, and that's after the race finishes.
Well, these are the two leaders now, and judging by the show of strength here as we enter the finishing town, My money will be on the Italian Priamo.
Well, he looks like a big, powerful rider. I don't really know very much about him, but as you said, he's had a couple of victories in Turkey this year, so he knows how to finish off races. While I have to say that the young rider from Euskaltel-Euskadi was just looking a little bit less powerful as we run into the final kilometre. Ultimo chilometro, as they say down here in Italy.
Priamo came across from the Panaria squad, where he won one race last year, his first ever win as a pro on the circuit of Lorraine. He led the race for a short time as well then.
Beautiful little town here. There's Magnus Backstedt putting his head down in anguish, I think, there, as he's got fined 38 seconds. So I don't think he's going to do that inside of the last 1 kilometre of racing, but he could hang on there to get himself a fine third-place finish.
Well, Maggie's doing all right. He stuck out in no man's land, but a third-place finish would be great consolation, I think.
Well, it looks like there's a bit of a change over here, because that, to me, looks as if that's the yellow jersey of Nikolai Trusov. So, although Backstedt made himself a very nice move there, I think he's been replaced by the Russian rider on Team Tinkoff.
And Paul Martins was the Rabobank rider chasing just behind Trusov. It's got to be those two, I think. There's Visconti allowing riders to slip away from the group, and he's just shadowing Matthias Roos here. He knows he's his main rival for pink, and he's allowing everybody else to jump away.
Well, they're moving all the team cars out, but as far as I'm concerned, these two riders have pretty much got the success. It's going to go one way or the other. They're now inside of 500 metres to go. And the way this finish is, in fact, I shouldn't have been too nasty to the rider from Euskaltel-Euskadi, because he still has a chance of getting himself the surprise. There is Trusov coming across there. He's in third place, but he's still looking for around about 25 seconds.
Well, they're both looking over the shoulder now to see where the chase is. If many of you will have been to Italy, but it's surprising just how many towns in Italy are all built on top of a hill. And it looks like we've got another one now, and a nasty grind up to the finishing line here. Priamo doesn't really want to lead here, but he's going to be left with no choice. I think Alain Perez is cooked, but you never know when he sees the finish.
Well, they're lining up now at 300 metres to go. I've just seen that Priamo's checking his gears, making sure he's in the right gear. He's going to wait until the last moment to begin the acceleration. Just hope that the Spaniard doesn't come off his wheel.
Well, the Italian's about to enjoy a stage victory here, I think, but I'm not so sure yet. But he's got the best way around the corner, and he's got the strength, I think. It looks as though Perez hasn't quite got it. Nonetheless, a good result for Euskaltel as he distanced him here in the final dash to the line. So it's been a great season for Mattia Priamo. 2 wins in Turkey. Now he gets his first ever national tour victory with a stage in his home tour. It won't result in the Maglia Rosa, but just who will get that depends on how they arrive here.
Well, that's the important thing. It's going to be a question of time. And they're coming up to the line. There is the rider from Tinkoff, and that's going to be Nikolai Trusov. And here's the rest of the group coming in as well. This is Maxim Iglinski, the national champion of Kazakhstan.
Poor old Maggie Backstedt. The legs didn't quite get him up here today. He slipped right through this group. Trusov, another good result for Tinkoff on the back of Pavel Brut's win yesterday. Little wave to the crowd. Paul Martins of Rabobank it was. And Maxim Iglinski of Astana. First time we've seen Astana make an impression.
Visconti, look at this.
Well, that's a pink jersey sprint. That's why he did it. That's a pink jersey finish there for Visconti. Only 8th place. Maggie comes home in 9th. And that's Roos, and there'll be a timed gap. So I would expect there'll be a time gap, and those few seconds will make the difference. So Visconti, the champion of Italy, will be in pink tonight.
Well, that should be the case, and I wonder what the riders in the main field are going to think, because they really made a little bit of a mess of this here this afternoon. But Jason McCartney coming in as well there for CSC.
Well, that was a great result here, but an indication perhaps that no one team can control the Giro d'Italia this year, because that was a big time gap and still is. And normally you don't see that in a stage race. So attacking riders get results. There's the result of the stage. Iglinski is completing the top 5 there. Some strange names. Priamo taking the stage victory. Backstedt in 9th place. Visconti's 8th place at 40 seconds. You see the time gaps. He gained 7 seconds on Roos. That will give him on count back, I think. What on earth is going on here? We had a motorbike go down, I think.
Yeah, motorbike. One of the motorbike marshals there had a bit of a problem, and it's created a crash on the left-hand side.
And this is the peloton, by the way, and you can see the time gap.
9 minutes and 58 seconds has gone by, and that little bit of confusion on the running towards the finish has really made it even tougher to get to the top of this finishing climb in Peschici.
Well, there's no reason to get excited now when there's so many minutes behind. They should have done that 50 kilometres ago. So they'll all climb up in the same time towards the finishing line, but it's going to be 11 minutes by the time they cross. That's a big gain for the breakaway. Should make an interesting overall classification tonight. And Visconti might keep that pink jersey for a while, you know.
Well, he's a very good bike rider, not one of the great climbers, but you know, when you pull on something like a Maglia Rosa, it creates an awful lot of changes. There's Pelizzotti on the left-hand side, Daniele Benati on the right-hand side. And even though there are a number of riders off the front end of the main field, Daniele Benati, I think, will have a crack at trying to get himself a few more points here. It's very important if you want to win the Ciclamina competition.
Well, there we are, the points and the pink as they come up towards the line. There are a few points left in the Ciclamina. The King of the Mountains jersey, by the way, is a green jersey in the Giro d'Italia.
So just out of interest, in about 6th or 7th position there, I've noticed Alberto Contador riding at the front end of the main field, and he must be getting better and better as this race goes forward. He wasn't prepared to ride this race. There he is in his Astana jersey. But the fact that he's riding at the front end of the main field, Phil, means he's obviously riding himself into a little bit of form in this race.
Well, tomorrow completes the first week of the Giro, and we haven't mentioned his name once apart from seeing him on that early stage on the finishing climb on stage 2. There's the time gap, 11 minutes and 34 seconds. Boy, they weren't in a hurry today, and it might be a mistake they'll pay dearly for.
Oh, by the way, Contador, Phil, was second over the line at the front end of that main field. Christian van der Velde here has lost a little bit of time, I think, on this stage finish, so he may well tumble down as well in the overall classification.
There's the stage winner, Priamo. Can't believe it. A long breakaway, over a quarter hour up, and they conserved 11 minutes. One day that'll be a big tree as he holds it above.
Bonsai.
They always have unique gifts for the winners in the Giro d'Italia.
Well, the bonsai tree there, I think, a little bit better than a leg of ham, I suppose.
Yeah, well, you can't eat that. And there's the situation. Overall, he's on the same time as Matthias Rutz, and so it's just as well he opened the gap. He's gone on countback to get the place over him. Nardello is in 3rd place, Perez up to 4th, and Gavazzi up into 5th. All of those riders in the breakaway.
Well, a nice move by Team Quickstep. Takes a little bit of pressure off the shoulders now of Paolo Bettini. And yes, Phil, I think this man could hold on to this jersey for a little while. I don't see him as being a surprise winner of the Giro d'Italia. And in the points classification, well, Benati leading already by around about 16 points over Riccardo, Riccò and Pavel Brut. Cavendish in 4th.
In 4th, and he lost out on one of the stages in the sprint, but on the Manuela Sella, proving his strength in the mountains. He's been climbing pretty well. We haven't seen too much of him over the mountains, but he has been winning them.
It's always a strange competition in the Giro d'Italia. The points that are allotted in the King of the Mountains classification in Italy really do tend to falsify the race. By the way, the leading young riders competition is also led by Visconti over Rus and Francesco Gavazzi at 5.5 minutes. Possoni in 4th and Nibali 5th.
Onward we go now to Pescoco, Stanzo, 180 kilometres. As the riders now face up to another good stage here as we continue our journey. This time we're now getting up into the middle of Italy as we complete our first week of 3. This is Bosisio, I think, who's out in the breakaway collecting mountain points.
Yeah, number 3. Paolo Gabriele Bosisio. This is the front end of the main field. There's the leader of the race, the new leader at 4.9 kilometres to go. Alongside him is his teammate Paolo Bettini. Bettini is a real great asset in a team because not only will he look after the team, but he's also got the chance of ripping off a victory himself. This is Danilo Di Luca looking over his shoulder. In that group with him is Riccardo, Riccò, and in fact they've got a small advantage, Phil, over the front end of the main field. And I'm not sure where they slipped away.
No, well, Emmanuel Sella was in the early move today, and he's won every mountains except the one we've just seen Bosisio take at Pescos Costanzo at kilometre 176, and now he's set fur to try and take the stage alone here. And the Maglia Rosa losing 3 minutes 20 just at the moment, so he's paying for that long breakaway yesterday, Visconti.
Contador, he's got himself into this break as well.
Well, they've got to come back and get the revenge somewhere down the line.
I wouldn't expect to see it on a day like this, and that's a very interesting move when you look at riders like De Luca, Riccò and Alberto Contador getting into the counter move. We're looking here at the quality of this man. 2 professional victories since he turned professional back in 2004, and once again the Giro d'Italia, Phil, really isn't very kind to the bike riders, is it? Especially in a breakaway. There's always a climb on the running towards the finish.
There is. Well, Visconti's over 3 minutes down on the leader on the road, which is Gabriele Bosisio. But he's only about a minute or so behind the likes of Alberto Contador, Riccò, Pipoli, Rebellin, Pelazzotti is up there as well.
Fortunato Balian is in this group. This is Leonardo Pipoli, and he's doing the work for his teammate there in the back, and that is Riccardo Riccò a little bit further back in the front end of the main field. That's Andreas Kloden. He's looking rather good as well, but he's not going to do anything at all to assist the chase behind his team leader.
Pelazzotti's there too. They're all looking as though they're not holding much of a conversation there. They're just getting on with the job. 4 kilometres to go for Bosisio. He's never won a big stage race like this in his life, so we'll see what he can do here.
Well, Pipoli is completely and utterly sacrificing himself here this afternoon, Phil. I'm not sure if he's just looking to try and move his teammate Riccardo Riccò up in the overall classification, but a major operation being done here really by Danilo Di Luca, because he's going to pull himself back 30 or 40 seconds on all of the other challenges in this bike race. Coming now inside of 5 kilometres to go for them. They're 2.5 minutes behind. I don't think they're going to be able to duke out the stage victory here this afternoon, but they've certainly put the cat amongst the pigeons in the main field, because they should never have let a group like this get off the front.
Well, it'll do him no harm at all. He'll get a nice leg up the classification. That big lead by Visconti will stay, of course. He's got time in hand, and that's the way it'll stay, I reckon, for a few days at least, with the Italian champion keeping in the Maglia Rosa. He can't allow too many of these sorties to slip in though, but it just show he's tired from yesterday, because he's behind some of the race favourites now.
Well, they've got around about 35 seconds advantage over this group, and I think the way the race is running up towards the finish line, it really has started to split behind. That gives you an indication that although this is not one of their major testing stages, it has been a hard day out in the saddle for these bike riders. As Bosisio here continues in his lonely move, I wonder if he knows that Danilo Di Luca's chasing him behind.
Well, this is a ride right into the centre of the boot of Italy, and it's hilly in the centre, and it's been a good day for racing. It's been a perfect racing day. Emanuel Sella, yes, he's had a terrific day in the mountains. He's scored almost the maximum points in the King of the Mountains, so he's building a very big lead in that competition. But that was Pipoli and Riccò trying to get away, and also with him was Contador. Contador seems to have warmed to this race in the last 24 hours, so perhaps he's got the sand out of his shoes now, as Bosisio is heading up towards the finish, and he's looking as though they're not going to catch him.
Well, that's Emanuel Sella.
Yeah.
And it looks as if he's trying to get himself a nice place here at the end of the stage. As you said a little earlier, Phil, I think he's on his way backwards because he's got himself an awful lot of points in the King of the Mountains classification this afternoon. There's the front end of the group, which has been led for a long time by Team Quickstep, but I think they're trying to turn off the gas now. That's Denny Menchov. He's seen the danger of giving time to a guy like Danilo Di Luca, so he's now trying to put things to rights on his own.
Well, these are days when you can lose the Tour if you lose just a few seconds here. A chance also to gain a few that might be very valuable when you get to the Dolomites in the Alps in the last week. 2 kilometres from the finish.
Testa della Corsa.
He can start to dream, I think. Gabriele Bosisio here. A good result for LPR Brakes. Remember, he's on the same team as Danilo Di Luca.
Well, this group now, Dan, Phil, is just 4 riders remaining. Pipoli and Riccò at the front doing the bulk of the pacemaking, followed there by Danilo Di Luca. If they get any closer to the advantage of Bosisio, I think you'll see Danilo Di Luca start to take a back seat. But you've got to take your hat off, though, to Alberto Contador. I mean, as you said, on the beach, not prepared to ride the Giro d'Italia. A week ago, they said, oh, by the way, lads, you can ride this year.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's a little bit unfair, the selection, the way they brought them in late, but I think they were happy to grab at it because they're not in the Tour de France. Don't forget Kirienka and Sella are still ahead of those 4 chasers, and I think they've split up now. We saw that Sella was in a spot of bother. This is back in the pack.
Been pulled back into the fold as well there. Riccò looking over from some assistance from Danilo Di Luca. These guys who are serious challengers to the overall classification have made a major move here this afternoon as we get into the outskirts of town now. Bosisio on the left-hand side. The main chasers on the right-hand side there. Di Luca prepared to work with Leonardo Pipoli. He must be one of the oldest bike riders in the event this year. I think he's almost 36 years of age as we now look at Bosisio now. A little bit lonely now as he ploughs that furrow right through the middle of town.
Well, Bosisio himself is 28 years of age. At least he will be later on during the Tour. So he's coming up this what looks like a cobble street. A little bit stroby too, and it's interfering with our pictures by the look of it, but he's getting up towards the finish now. He's still got time in hand. He needn't over worry about where the others are. He's got the best part of a minute. We're not seeing anything of the Kirienka-Sella chase, but they are between Bosisio and the rest of the group.
Well, Danilo, the killer Di Luca, on the right-hand side there. Phil looks like he's really got the bit between the teeth this afternoon. He sees this as a major opportunity to get a coup over all of the other challengers in the race, and just to pull back 30 seconds or a minute on a flat stage like this really is a massive advantage, especially when you think in a few days' time we've got a pretty important individual time trial. Cloden looks good. There's Gilberto Simoni in his Sella Italia jersey. I'm not going to say the full name of the team.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that Di Luca there is not doing anything to defend for this man, his teammate, is he? But he probably knows that he's got at least a minute, and that should be enough anyway.
I think he realises now that his teammate has got the victory pretty much in the bag here this afternoon. So as far as he's concerned, what he wants to do is try and get as much time as possible over all of the other challengers in the group behind.
Well, time to ease up now and start to think what a great day it's about to become here. Cheers all round. He's ridden away on his own. And it's been a very, very solid performance by Gabriele Bosisio. Turned pro, by the way, back in 2004. And this will be the biggest win of his life here. He's never had a good placing in a classic or even a good finish in a stage race before.
It's making a hard job of it, though. It's a nasty finish up to the line here. See the concentration on his face. He looks around every corner wondering where is the finish line going to be. Well, it's not too far now for this young man as he takes the final bend. Behind him, the race is completely and utterly split to pieces, and in fact the main field has split quite a bit as well.
His only victory so far this year, aptly named the Tour of Gold, which was in April, the Giro d'Oro. And since then, here we are about 3.5 weeks later, and he's heading up the hill to his first ever stage win in a Giro d'Italia. Another nasty slug up to the line. I can hardly say the organisers are favouring the sprinters this year. This is Sella. Now, where is he?
Going around the corner there.
He's either second or third. I'm not sure where Kirienka's gone now.
Well, probably what's more
important. Oh, there's Kirienka, so he's ahead of him.
Yeah, Kirienka's in second place on the road. Sella in third, and in fact, somewhere in the middle of nowhere is Felix Cardenas, and he was part of that early breakaway.
But there you can hear the public address system now. So too can Gabriele Bosisio. A week into the Giro, he's found the finishing line ahead of everybody else. 4 3/4 hours to cover the 180 plus kilometres. Just 150 metres left to ride to the line. There won't be a change overall, but he was fairly well placed overall. He will come into the top 4 or 5 riders now with his performance. We'll have to wait till the arrival of Visconti to see how far back he will be, but Visconti, which had a big lead overnight, has lost a big advantage today. He gets the win then, and LPR, instead of using Danilo Di Luca, have found a new man to win for them in Bosisio.
I think this is the most important thing for me on the stage here this afternoon, Phil, that big group with all the massive favourites in it, and Alberto Contador riding himself into form. There you can just see going around the corner was Kirienka. He'll get second place, but the big job of work is being done by the 2 riders from Saunier Duval. It's Pipoli on the front. He's sacrificing himself for his teammate there, Riccò, as Sella bounces around the corner for third.
Well, a first, a third and a second for Team Tinkoff now, and they are having a very, very good Giro d'Italia. And using different riders on each occasion. He comes home in second place, the clock telling us the gap. Well, it's considerable even to the second man at 46 seconds. As we now continue on here, and this will be Felix Cardenas, rides for Barlow World. He's a climber and he's using it to good avail here today. He'll head up. This is Sella in third. What does the clock say? Just over a minute, and a great day out for him. He's really put a big lead on in that green jersey as King of the Mountains, winning all bar one of the climbs today. So we should see Cardenas coming around the corner. Maybe we won't, as a minute 15 counts away. And just looking up here, this is the Contador group, or should we call it the Riccò Peopley group there. And Danilo Di Luca. There's Cardenas. So he comes over in fourth when he gets there. And look at the time gaps you see, and we've not seen the pink jersey, of course, yet. Here's the men who could be winning the Giro d'Italia in a couple of weeks' time. And this is a big move by them today. And they've all come through very strong. And Contador, you've got to take your hat off to Alberto Contador. He's dangling off the back now, but he's starting to find his legs. And at the beginning, we really thought he was going to just put the show on to get the team in the race and then slip out of it, and he hasn't done so.
Well, he's put under a little bit of pressure there because let's not face it, Phil, he's not prepared for the Giro d'Italia. Di Luca gets the place there ahead of Riccò Peopley, and Alberto Contador loses himself for 7 or 8 seconds there in that split up to the line.
He'll be 8th over the line, though, and still no sign of the Maglia Rosa, as there won't be for a few minutes, I don't think. Going back to 2 minutes 20 seconds here now. That's David Rebellin.
Menchov, Cloden. There's the Spanish champion Rodriguez in the red and amarillo colour at the back. Pretty sure that the Maglia Rosa is in this group. I haven't seen him, but he was in that group a little earlier on.
I don't think he was. I don't think I saw a pink jersey go around there trying to get the bikes off down the escape route. Rebellin continues to set the pace here. Nearly 3 minutes has gone by now.
Well, there aren't any riders from Quick-Step in this group either, so it may well be that the Maglia Rosa has disappeared from the group.
So he had a big lead, remember, after an 11-minute victory yesterday over the main contenders, and they've taken a bit of time off him today. We're now over 3 minutes gained back for Bosisio anyway.
Well, we're looking now down through all of these groups to see what the position is of the Maglia Rosa. It could very well be that this is the group of the Maglia Rosa trying to keep it on his shoulders. He started the day with a pretty massive advantage over everybody else. This looks like Juan Maurizio Soler.
Yes, it is, but he's still got his wrist is still giving him a little bit of trouble, I think.
And he's bandaged on his knee as well there.
Yeah.
Sequels of a very nasty crash in the opening few days of the Giro d'Italia this year. One by one, these riders are coming up. The clock continues. There is the Maglia Rosa. 3:51 is the time that he went over the finish line. So I wonder if that will keep him up in the Maglia Rosa this afternoon.
Well, judging by all the riders who've just come in there, you'd be lucky to be in the top 30 finishes here. But it's time that counts, not position. And he's lost a considerable amount, almost 4 minutes to Bosisio. But more importantly, perhaps, he'll have lost around about 3.5, 2 3/4, 3 to 3.5 minutes. On the big contemporaries there, Di Luca, Riccò, Peopley, Contador. A little bit of a gap back to Rebellin. There's the happy days of Gabriele Bosisio for LPR Breaks. Big victory for him.
Huge victory for him and the team. 46 seconds his final victory over Kirienka. A minute 2 back to Emmanuel Sella. 1:33 to Cardenas and 2:04 to Danilo Di Luca. So that's around about 1 minute and 50 second losing by the man who started the day in the Maglia Rosa. Bellizotti in 10th at 2:55. Great ride though by Alberto Contador.
Yes, just didn't have quite the punch at the end, but he did well to hold on to those boys who obviously were preparing for the Giro d'Italia, unlike Alberto, who wasn't preparing for it at all. In fact, apparently he was on holiday. Anyway, there's the overall, and Bosisio comes up. Visconti's opened a 9-second gap on Russ now. Bosisio has dropped in at 5:43. Di Luca is also up there. Looking further back, all the boys that finished up today have now claimed the top spots. Riccò in at 7th. Alberto Contador up to 9th at 7:56. But he's more importantly worried about the whereabouts of Riccò, I think, and not Visconti. Here he is, all smiles, another day in pink at least. Now we're heading off to start the second week of the Giro. Well, not quite. We haven't got the peloton home yet.
Well, this will be the autobus, the laughing group, if you like, and this will be the group of all of the sprinters who'll be very happy to get themselves home on a day like this, because it is always a difficult thing wondering whether or not you're going to get eliminated.
Well, we're heading off to Tivoli now, 208 kilometres. We're just short of the coast as we continue our journey from east to west across the centre of Italy. Again, undulations for the riders here, but the big mountains await them in the Dolomites and the Alps in the last week. There's over 100 kilometres of time trialling as well to come in this year's Giro d'Italia. A little bit more than normal, about 20-25 kilometres more than usual.
Gerolsteiner in control at the front end of the main field here. Everybody looking over their shoulders. We're inside of 5 kilometres to go to the finish line now. A couple of riders at the front there also for Team Astana. Big long line of the main peloton charging into town here at around about 50 kilometres an hour.
Well, they're 48 hours away from the first individual time.
Oh, what happened there? I don't know.
A little bit of a diversion, a slip behind the crowds. A Cofidis rider there. Was it Monnier?
Yeah, Damien Monnier.
Yes, there it is.
Took a little bit of an excursion into the crowd a little bit further up the road there. This is one of the riders from High Road. This is Adam Hansen.
Yeah. National time trial champion of Australia. I think was the first win for the brand new team. Came in January in Ballarat.
Hansen's looking to try and get himself a stage victory here if he can. No organisation at the front end of the main field. Everybody just looking back, trying to get themselves organised. This is how that accident happened before. You see those riders were on the wrong side of a directional island and had to make the shortcut back into the main field.
The funny thing was the crowd continued to look in the direction of the cameras and didn't seem to notice the riders had gone behind them there. Well, this is a good way to time trial to victory. This is Adam Hansen giving it his best shot for Team High Road. They've come out for a brand new team on the block. They're registered in California now. It's an American team and it's managed by Bob Stapleton, and they are really having a tremendous start to the year.
Alberto Contador in the main field. On the left-hand side, though, is Adam Hansen. He's a strong bike rider. Some incredible stories about Adam Hansen. His mum said he's from, I think, Cairns in Australia, and he wanted to go on holiday, so he decided to ride all the way down to Brisbane. That's only about 2,000 kilometres.
It is a long way.
And he slept on the beach.
Well, I don't blame him. Probably didn't have any legs left to go anywhere else.
But when he got down to Brisbane, he didn't have any money left, so he rode home.
But he won't be thinking about that right now as he tries to take this race by the scruff of the neck and get a victory here. He's got a nice tempo going. He's right at the limit, I think, as the chase. It's a fast finish, this one today as well. So the sprinters, having been beaten on these small climbs for nearly a week, might prefer this. They've got a good charge going too here.
Just looking at Team Astana there, I can't quite figure out why they're working so hard on the front end of the main field. They haven't really got a great sprinter on their team, but they really are all over the front of this. You can see the organisation coming from Team Astana. Hansen really getting into the last throws now. He's inside of the last 3 kilometres to go. Keeps looking round the corner. Haven't got any definite time checks on him, but I don't think his advantage can be all that much. He must be hovering at around about the 15 or the 20-second mark.
They're not very far behind, I don't think. I'm sorry to say. Oh, 16 seconds. They're not.
Good guess.
Because I thought the countryside looked a little bit similar to both groups there.
De Luca's at the back here. Now, that's not a good place for Danilo Di Luca to be. And I wonder if he's had a mechanical, because he's surrounded there by his teammates. And it could well be that he's just had a recent mechanical incident. Not a thing on race radio at this point, but it could well be that that's been an incident for Danilo Di Luca. 16 seconds is a tough call for a man like this, especially when you know the main field are going to start to rack it up a little bit, Phil. And again, on the run in towards the finish, it does kick up just a fraction inside the last kilometre.
Just caught a glimpse there too of David Miller in his British Champions jersey, slipping off the back of the peloton, which doesn't all well for David. There's De Luca holding position. He might be keeping out of trouble, and because we've had these falls and these sprints, and just keep his nose clean.
Oh.
Hansen surrenders.
I know
bangs
why.
the handlebars. He's frustrated, but he looks back and he'll see the peloton right there. It was a good effort, that, by Adam Hansen.
Frustrated by his legs, I think, Phil.
Yeah.
Realising just how fast these men go on the running towards the finish. Somebody taking advantage of the junction there to leap off the front end of this group. I didn't catch who it was, but it looked like a rider from Navigari.
It was a rider from Navigari, and now we can see who it is now, because as he starts the group move here, this will be Dal Antonia Tiziano.
Long way down in the overall classification. It's a good moment to hit a group like this, just as a rider gets caught. I'm a bit concerned about Danilo Di Luca, though, Phil, sitting at the back in the group like this, because that's the best way to lose time. Let's not forget he gained an awful lot of time on yesterday's stage when he was in that breakaway. In fact, he pulled himself right up into the top 5 in the overall classification. There is the lone leader, but he's only got himself an advantage of 5 or 6 seconds.
Yes, and
3 or 4.
1 or 2. It looks as though they're closing it right up here.
Bernati's right up at the front of this group,
Yes.
so he'll be looking for a little bit of glory here this afternoon, riding there in 4th place. I think the rider just in front of him is Emmanuel Sella in the green jersey, the leader of the King of the Mountains classification.
Dal Antonio just got swept up there too, so it's a bunch sprint at the moment.
Well, this is Pipoli on the front end of the group now. He's starting to whip up the pace. And
Fanberger.
yeah, Fanberger's moving up to the front as well there. You can see the pressure that this Leonardo Pipoli is putting on the front end of the main field. Emmanuel Sella is climbing up into 4th place. There's a run-up, and the final 1,600 metres, Phil, is a lot steeper than I thought it was.
Yes, it didn't really appear this way on the contour. I thought it was quite a big bunch sprint for the sprinters, but judging by Pipoli, he knew differently as well. Watch out for Paolo Bettini. He won't be far away again on a typical sort of finish for him. There he is. So this is a good finish again for Pipoli as he tries now. And also down there as well is Christian Fanberger, and Riccardo Riccò is up there too.
Riccò there in 4th position. He's right on the wheel of Emmanuel Sella. Sella is all over his bike there, trying to hold on to the pace being set here by Leonardo Pipoli. Pipoli not riding his own race here this afternoon. He's sacrificing himself to try and set something up for his sprinter. And the acceleration on this run up to the finish is really hurting the leader, Giovanni Visconti.
There's still time to lose time on this finish here, and if he keeps this sort of work up, then he is going to lose time. This is Rabon, Franciszek Rabon here, who is the Czech Republic rider on Team High Road. A big, strong man. Under the kilometre, he's setting the pace here. I don't see Mark Cavendish, though.
Don't think it's a Mark Cavendish finish here this afternoon, Phil. There you can see there Sella is being very attentive. He's the rider in the green jersey, and still Leonardo Pipoli comes to the front to set the pace-making. 2nd position is David Rebellin. 3rd position, Riccardo Riccò. Waiting to pounce there is the world champion Paolo Bettini.
There's a split here in the field as well, and I don't know whether they'll give separate times, but they might do, because it is a steady slog up to the line here. As Pipoli continues to set the pace, Felix Cardenas has moved up as well. He's having a very good ride for Barloworld. There's the world champion for the past 2 years.
Bellizotti at the front of the group there in 4th position. The former leader of this race. He's also trying to keep himself high up in the overall classification. But yes, there is a big split in the group, and it's all because of the pressure of Leonardo Pipoli on the front end of the main field. There's Andreas Kloden on the right for Team Astana. Emmanuel Sella on the left.
The ever-present David Rebellin again at the head at the kill. Hasn't won a stage yet. He sits there in 2nd place, not quite where Pipoli would want to. De Luca's having a go. Straight over the top of Pipoli, and a dive for the line. That's caused a reaction that's come from David Rebellin. And they're quickly going after the killer here. And look at the face of Paolo Bettini. He's got 3rd wheel here, but this is Riccò. What he did in Agrigento, it looks like he's going to do in Tivoli here. He's still got lots of life in those legs. He's challenged all the way to the line. Paolo Bettini will be absolutely fuming. That was his win, I think, and it was taken off him by the 25-year-old Riccardo Riccò.
And Visconti was in the group, Phil, just on the back of the group, so he shouldn't have lost any time here this afternoon. Congratulations there from Riccardo Riccò to Paolo Bettini. It's 20 seconds since everybody's crossed the line. This is a man, I thought there was something wrong with him earlier on with about 3 kilometres to go, sitting at the back end of the main field, but he'd obviously studied the finishing profile very well here this afternoon, because he wanted to make that move inside of the last 500 metres. Unfortunately, he didn't quite have enough left to finish it off.
Yes, Bettini really had planned on this one, and he made his move, but he's found an extremely strong Riccardo Riccò here, who's now got 2 stage wins in the Giro.
Looking over his shoulder there, he can see the face on Jiminy Cricket. That's the nickname given to the world champion. Over on the left-hand side, he's hoping to get a 3rd world championship towards the end of this season, when the world championships are in Varese, Italy, in the month of September.
So there it is. It was a kind of bunch sprint, but it wasn't for the pure sprinter, was it? As Riccò gets win number 2 in the Giro, and Sony Duval continue a very, very satisfying tour.
2 wins then for Riccardo Riccò now, and he must be moving up pretty high in the Ciclamina competition. And once again, a magnificent backdrop. The gap opening Visconti again over Matthias Rust to 34 seconds. But the other guys in this race, Phil, are still looking for big chunks of time. 7.5 minutes required by Danilo Di Luca.
That'll keep Visconti in a good position for the time trial. which is now only 24 hours away. We've got one more road race stage to come, and he should be last man to start if all goes well tomorrow. They tend not to race too hard on the eve of a time trial. We'll find out.
E ancora un applauso di Tivoli per la maglia rosa, Giovanni Visconti.
So to stage number 10 now, as we head on to San Vincenzo, 218, stage number 9 rather, 218 kilometres. Right around the coast here now as we head up towards the venue for tomorrow's time trial. And that time trial will be just short of 25 miles or 40 kilometres. So they should do that in around about 47, 48 minutes, the best men. But we'll find out about that in about 24 hours' time, I guess. Here's the whole peloton hugging the road together.
And a nasty little loop around town as well on the run in towards the finish. Again, it's riders from Team High Road coming up to the front end of the main field, trying to keep it organised. I think everybody believes that today we will see a big bunch sprint. A lot of concentration as riders move up on the left-hand side. You can see the Liquigas riders. They'll be looking after the hopes of Daniele Benatti. All the teams getting themselves fairly organised. The Maglia Rosa stuck in the middle there, thinking about defending that in the individual time trial. He's not renowned for his time trialling ability, but I think with the advantage he's got, he should be able to hold on to the lead for a little bit longer, at least in that individual race for the Maglia Rosa.
Well, there was only one small climb out in the mid-course today. Sella didn't win it, by the way, but he did manage to go over the top in third place, so he's holding a commanding lead in the King of the Mountains.
Really starting to whip up the pace there. You can see them stretching it out into a big long line. Obviously Team High Road this afternoon reckon that they've got the chance of a victory with their man Mark Cavendish. I can't see Cavendish, but he tends to be a little bit like Robbie McEwen. He sits in the group, and although the team do all of the pace making, it seems to me that Mark Cavendish likes to come out of the pack in a strange style, as Robbie McEwen does. He waits until the last moment and takes the advantage of a door opening up in front of him. 3 kilometres to go.
Yes, and they're just searching up and down the peloton. There's David Miller, and you've just seen his teammate slip down there, Danny Pate, who might turn in a good time trial tomorrow if he gets his way.
You might notice David Miller's got those long leg tights on and the long arm warmers as well. Well, that's not because it's cold out there in Italy here this afternoon. It's because David has a really nasty allergy to the sun, and if he stays out in the sun too long, his body, his arms come up in really nasty bumps, and they still haven't been able to find out exactly what that reaction is to, or how they can handle it in a legal matter in this day and age of doping.
Yes, it really is unpleasant, and it itches as well, so he's got to keep himself covered up on these very hot and sunny days. It must be something to do with the ultraviolet rays, and so he does look a little bit silly being so well wrapped up, but I should imagine that the lycra is pretty light.
I have to say, I had a similar thing myself when I was racing. It's known as prickly heat. It only affected me when I was racing. Once I stopped racing, I've never had that problem with the sun again. So it may well be that pushing your body to such great lengths as these athletes do, he's missing in some kind of a mineral or maybe some kind of vitamin.
Well, Team High Road are confident they can deliver Mark Cavendish. They put their men on the front, and this should be a sprinter's delight today now. They're not going to let anybody slip away from this field.
Well, Bettini riding at the front end of the main field. He's looking for that victory, isn't he? He's always at the front on the run in towards the finish. But High Road have decided this afternoon this is the time to keep them nice and fast, to keep the races organised as possible, to stop the sprinters getting confused on the run in towards town. There is Cavendish. In fact, he's moved up to about 7th or 8th position.
So he's thinking about it. He's got one win already. Let's not forget, the flags are out, trouble around the corner, or just a tight bend? Just a tight bend. It's quite narrow, the roads here, I must say.
Well, unfortunately,
and a huge crowd watching them around that corner. I don't think I'd have stood on the left.
No. Well, fortunately, it moves out into a slightly wider. There's Robbie McEwen at the front end of the main field. So McEwen looking for a victory, trying to use his years-old recipe of riding well in the Giro d'Italia in the first 10 to 12 days and then going on to perform at the Tour de France. Although Robbie's had a very quiet season this year, he looks good there.
Well, this has got to be one stage he's going to have a shot at. It's got to be, because he normally goes home about 10 days into the Giro. He might go a little bit longer this time before we get to the big mountains. He won't finish. That we can all guarantee.
There's a move up on the left-hand side there by Gerolsteiner. They'll be looking after them, and that'll be Robert Forster. He's a great finisher as well. You see a lot of riders sporting bandages. There's been a lot of crashes in the opening week of the Giro d'Italia. Just looking, there's a McEwen.
Yes, well, now we're on to stage 9. they seem to be a little bit less in the way of falling off. The riders getting to know each other pretty well.
Eric Zabel riding at the front end of the group as well. You can never discount Eric Zabel. He's always consistent.
Yeah.
You make one mistake on the running towards the finish line, any of the sprinters, and Eric Zabel would take advantage of it.
Julian Dean down there as well, the sprinter from New Zealand on the team of Slipstream.
There's
Also,
101. That's Cavendish.
Cavendish is there. Greipel has been the rider doing a lot of the work for Team High Road. He's a sprinter in his own right after a terrific tour down under this year. He scalped everybody to take an early lead in the Pro Tour circuit.
Well, you can see the work again being done by Fabio Baldato, the old man of the sport. Still got the enthusiasm and the speed to stretch out the main field into a very long line. There's Cavendish. There's Zabel. Excuse me, I'm coming by. I want to stay on the wheel of Cavendish here this afternoon.
Oh, it looks as though Greipel stuck the shoulder on the world champion there. That wouldn't have gone down too well. He may be a small man, but he's a very aggressive man, Paolo Bettini, when it comes to a finish, if he wants to be. And Zabel is also looking for a win here. He's still dicing with the wheels as the final lead out comes again. Is it Tony Martin once more who's trying to bring them up to the line here for Team High Road? Where is Cavendish? Tucked in nicely, almost like when he won the stage, in fact, except the riders are right up his back wheel now, instead of falling off in the closing metres. And there is Bettini. There's a lot of movement going on here now, as we would expect.
A black and white jersey there is the Kiwi champion, Julian Dean. He's right at the front end of the main field, but now it's Milram getting themselves organised. They're trying to set this one up for their man, Eric Zabel. In the middle there, Paolo Bettini zigzagging a few arms. And in fact, Robbie McEwen's arm came off the handlebars there, saying, excuse me, I'm coming through to the front. Forster makes a move on the left.
Yeah, big move on the inside of the rails there by Robert Forster. That might finish it off for them. He's a good sprinter as he comes up towards the line at 100 metres to go now, but Paolo Bettini is still there and thinking about it. The Liquigas rider is trying to get through as well, and that's Bernardi, and I think he's going to do it. Well, that's down to the photo. It was either Bettini or Bernardi, and I don't know. Are they saying to each other who was it? They're not sure.
Nope. I think Bettini thought he may well have got it there. It was a very close lunge to the line. He looks over his shoulder. Did you get it or did I?
Well, they're not going to congratulate each other here in case it's a bad omen.
No, well...
one of them won.
If we can have another look at it, I'll get a chance of seeing just exactly who it was.
It was desperately close, wasn't it? But Bernardi came up on the inside there.
It's Bernardi there in the lime green. A little bit of fighting there going on. That's Greipel looking over his shoulder, and he wants to try and get his man, Mark Cavendish, to the front. Robbie McEwen stuck right in the middle there. There's the acceleration from Forster that started it all on the left-hand side, but then Julian Dean says, no, thanks, mate. I'm coming right up through them. And look at the shoulder bunching that's going on there.
They both want the back wheel there. As it's Zabel they're trying to get onto the back of. He's on the back wheel of Bernardi. Here's the final lead out, but they're leading out Bernardi. There's the run up the inside there by Robert Forster that looked like a winner when it came. It really did. He had terrific acceleration. Then Bernardi's broken on the right. Zabel tries, but hasn't got anything like the kick of Bernardi. And at this stage, no sign of Bettini.
Well, there you can see that's the start of the move there. That's the acceleration of Bernardi. Zabel's trying to challenge. Robbie McEwen's blocked in on the right-hand side, right in the middle there, but coming up to the line, the lunge, well, I give it to Bernardi.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, from the top, it didn't look quite so close. But I'd give it to Bernardi, which gives him his second stage win. He won stage 3 as well.
Well, there you can see right in the middle there, it's Eric Zabel trying once again to get it. The acceleration, though, on the right-hand side created just a little bit of confusion for everybody, and it was all done by the work of Daniele Bernardi. He made the move to get up to the wheel of Forster, then he continued with his effort, even though challenged on the left-hand side by Eric Zabel. Bettini really wants this coming up through the outside, but he just hasn't quite got it to beat the man who's probably going to be the new fast man for Italy over the next few years, at Daniele Bernardi.
Well, let's see, there's the confirmation and win for Bernardi by a hair's width over Bettini. McEwen up there, first time we've seen Robbie break in. He was third in the end. But 2 wins for him now, rivaling yesterday's man, Riccò, who's also got 2 wins. This will put him back in the points Ciclamino jersey as well today, in time for the time trial. There's the overall, no change at all, still 34 seconds to Roos. This will change in the time trial a little bit, I think, but not by a lot, because there's still big time gaps back to everybody else. Riccò will look to shut down on that 7.5 minutes, as will Alberto Contador, who rides a pretty good time trial. We should know now after the time trial, whether Alberto is still on holiday or whether he's here with serious intent.
Well, there was a lot of rumour and innuendo in the first week of the Giro d'Italia that he was only going to ride for a week or 10 days, but the way he's performing at the moment, Phil, I would have to get on the phone to Johan Brunel and say you need to keep him in this bike race. So Bernati gets the points classification back from Riccardo, 80 to 69, persistent up there in third, Eric Zabel in fourth.
Well, the sprinters can take a rest now because the next stage is the individual time trial, almost 40 kilometres, a long journey across the centre of Italy to the start town of Pesaro, and we'll race into Urbino, and that is, as I say, 39.4 to be absolutely precise, as we now run down on the east side for the finish.
First real test for all of the contenders. Early man to go out there, Vladimir Gusev, is the time of 58.46, but it's just been beaten by Marco Pinotti, and that's a great ride by the man from High Road.
Yes, Pinotti joining Team High Road, and former pink jersey wearer in the Giro d'Italia, and so he's got the best time now, and not surprisingly, because he's a very good time trial rider. Now let's see what can happen here now.
This is Bruseghin, and he's a man who in the past has only ever really shown glory in any form of professional cycling in the individual time trial, and Phil, he's actually posting some very fast times out on the course.
Well, he's almost 34 years of age, as he will be on the 15th of June. Now, what's happening out here, because this is very interesting now. This is a catch here. Contador pulling back his man.
Cloden.
Cloden pulling back. Quite right, Paul.
They both look very similar, actually, in the new strip.
Rebellini's caught here.
Well, that's a bit of a surprise there that he's managed to pull back David Rebellin. Rebellin, not really one of the great individual time trialists, but Denny Menchov is putting in a fine performance here, and he's going to challenge that time of Marco Pinotti, 57.17. The fast men now, Phil, are starting to show here in the Giro d'Italia, although I'm not sure that Menchov is going to beat Pinotti.
I think it's a bit too far, because as you can see, they've even found a hill finish in the time trial. And a long effort here by Menchov that strengthens the ride of Pinotti, because Menchov is a big challenger here. Must be considered a favourite for when we get towards the mountains. Vandenbroek is home with 57.59. He drops a place. Menchov in at second. Now here's the champion of Italy of years gone by, Bruseghin, and his only victories have been in time trials. Now let's see what he can deliver here, because he is in a much better position here to displace Pinotti. He's got plenty of time to get up this hill. So we've got a new leader now, and a man who really could win this time trial.
Well, he's got himself a good minute to get to the finishing line. I remember many years ago he led a stage of the Giro d'Italia almost through the whole of the afternoon, only to get beaten right down towards the end. But I think on this occasion, Phil, he's going to set the barrier very high indeed. He's looking at Pinotti's time there of 57.17, and clap! He's gone right inside there by 36 seconds.
Well, now he's on the man to beat, because last year he won stage 13 in this race, when it was in fact a mountain time trial, and he rode it then as champion as well. But now he's no longer the champion, but he's certainly the leader, and a good gap opened on Pinotti.
Fourth place finisher at the moment there by Levi Leipheimer. Andreas Cloden riding himself into the Giro d'Italia. I would have to think that of all of the riders on Team Astana, Cloden is probably going to be the team leader here at the Giro, depending on how Alberto Contador rides himself in. And starting last man, really in a defensive role, I think, this afternoon, Phil, the Italian road champion, Giovanni Visconti, in the Maglia Rosa, the pink jersey of leadership.
Last man, the sweeper of 176 who are still in this race at the moment. And it's going to be a lonely ride, I think, for Visconti. He's one thing I think he's assured of, because his gaps are still big enough. He'll still be in the pink at the end of this day. But how much time will his rivals pull back on him?
Well, the difficult thing about a time trial of almost 40 kilometres in length is if you're not a good time trialist, you can see yourself losing anything between 3 and 5 minutes on big men like, of course, there we were just looking at Andreas Cloden. Paolo Salvadelli, not a bad ride by him at the 32 kilometre mark. He's in 5th place there, just 28 seconds adrift.
Yes, well, Il Falco is also a pretty good time trialist. He's a past winner, of course, of the Giro d'Italia. This is Danilo Di Luca, last year's winner. Also a man that can survive better than most in the time trial. Chance now this really is Alberto Contador at the 32 kilometres, 10 seconds best time. That is a very good start. He's determined.
Well, it's amazing the gangly style of Alberto Contador there, wearing number 22. His teammate coming up to the finish line to put himself up at the top of the overall classification if he can. Andreas Kloden, he's looking to challenge the time now of Marco Pinotti, who holds on to second. He's going to do that, so the German from Astana slips into second place, 20 seconds adrift.
Well, I think Kloden will feel pretty pleased with that, and so too will Team Astana, because when it counts, they're making it count. Here is Savardelli racing for the third slot now of Pinotti, and I don't think he'll get there in about 8 seconds' time, so he'll probably slip behind. But Savardelli, nonetheless, is battling it out as he heads up towards the finish.
Well, he's catching Leonardo Pipoli here, Phil, who started 4 minutes in front of him on the road. So it just gives you an idea of how well Paolo Savardelli has ridden. He's going to stop the clock there just inside of the time of Denny Menchoff. So that'll be fourth for the moment for Paolo Savardelli.
That was a very good effort there. Pipoli quite clearly riding this tour in favour of his team captain, Riccò. He's just proved that now. It wasn't a big effort in the time trial by him. But Savardelli wants yet another good tour. This is the lonely world now. A little bit of rain on the camera lens as well. The lonely world of the race leader, Giovanni Visconti. Nothing up... Oh, I say there's nothing up front. It looks as though there might be a rider up there.
It could be a motorbike, a specialised bike for Giovanni Visconti. A nice full disc wheel in the back there. He's got everything on his side to make him as aerodynamic as possible. But you really do have to be a specialist in the individual time trial now, Contador.
But it's the conditions that have changed, and these cobbles are glacial now. They really are, and that rain is pelting down, so they're going to have to sit in the saddle on these corners, otherwise they might be sitting on the cobblestones. But Contador is still running close. The best time is Bruseghin, 56.41. But I think the weather's going to, if he does get beaten, it calls down to the weather here, because those cobbles will be glacial now.
Well, he took it very precariously around that corner. He's looking to challenge the time of Marzio Bruseghin, 56 minutes and 41 seconds. And yes, I think, Phil, he'll be getting a little bit of wheel slip because of these cobblestones. That's Pelizzotti, the man that started 2 minutes in front of him. He's caught Pelizzotti and passed him, and he's gone outside the time there of Bruseghin.
Yeah, and remember, he was 10 seconds better, and now he slipped behind it by just a few seconds. So I think the rain has made the difference, and Bruseghin is going to be pretty happy now. He is very relieved at that, because there's no one really left to disturb Bruseghin now. He will win this stage, and he's no stranger to winning a time trial stage of the Giro either.
Yeah, but what I think is a little bit scary, though, Phil, is Team Astana have put 3 men into the top 10 in the individual time trial. Now, that's an indication that these guys, despite the last-minute invitation, are right on form for the upcoming mountains.
Well, I think they're trying to prove a point to the organiser of the Tour de France as well, that they really should have been invited back, but we all know the story behind the controversy there, and they won't be in the Tour de France this year. But Visconti, as he closes down now and sweeps up his time, already matching that of Leipheimer's, who was in 9th, slipping rapidly down this. But even so, this isn't a bad ride, Paul.
I reckon it's a good ride by Visconti, losing himself only a minute on a day when he could have lost 3 or 4, so that will keep him pretty solidly up at the top end of the overall classification. He's going to be very happy with that ride this afternoon.
The riders made the most of the rest day yesterday, although half it was spent travelling across to the start of this time trial. They brought the bad weather as well now. Very uncharacteristic. There's Matthias Russ outside the hour for him, outside the time of Jens Voigt.
Well, in fact, I think you were right when you said you thought you'd seen a rider in front of him, because, in fact, let's not forget that Visconti caught and passed this rider who started 2 minutes ahead of him. So that's a great ride by the Italian champion.
It's the old story. Pull on the leader's jersey, you ride like 2 men, I think. And he will lose time to all of the main contenders, but he'll still be in pink tonight, and that, I suspect, was his main aim. Philippe Dynaner, the Irishman, in his first Giro. As this is Roos coming home now, he'll slip right out of the contention, I think, with that performance.
He lost himself more than 4 minutes, and as the ringside commentator says, the ultimo corridore. So Bruseghin gets himself the win.
He gets the win by 8 seconds over Contador. Andreas Kloden in third place. A big plus for Astana. And yet another time trial win for this man here. He hasn't got many wins in his career. He has delivered another great blow here. Oh, he brought his own glass along. I don't believe it.
That's a professional.
I don't believe it. Out of his back pocket. Even the girls were impressed with that.
Oh, well, that's a big one. Nice move by Bruseghin. But it hasn't really affected the top end of the overall classification, except Alberto Contador has slipped into 4th.
Yes, and that's, I think, significant. Inside the 7-minute gap for him, Bosisio is still holding 3rd, but looking for a bit of time. That's a good ride, though, by Visconti, and he'll be happy the time trial is over. But the weather forecast for the rest of this week is not very good, and I think it just started here towards the end of this day. So there we are, kisses all round, and Visconti takes the race back to the mass start rides in pink. So stage 11 now, 199 kilometres to Cesena, as we start our journey north really now towards the Dolomites and the Alps and the last final week of the Giro d'Italia, which will be of course very significant this year. But at the moment it's been a story of a champion of Italy defending the pink jersey. Manuel Sala, he's almost making this green jersey his before we even get to the high mountains. He's having such a good time as leader of the King of the Mountains.
Well, he's pretty dominant, been so far in that King of the Mountains classification, and if you go out for it, it's the kind of classification that you really do have a chance of leading all the way to the finish. He leads with 37 points over 19 to Bosisio.
Yep, good day for the mountains today as the race continues on, and it's, as you can see, the weather sadly is not very good at all here as it continues on. This is Monte Carpegna. And there's the breakaway, and good luck to the commentators now recognising them because they've pulled on their racing capes. The rain is coming down, as we say, like stair rods, dead straight.
It really is a nasty day. When it gets cold in the Giro d'Italia, it really does become quite freezing. There's Danilo Di Luca on the left-hand side, pretty much happily ensconced in the middle of the main field, and very narrow roads here this afternoon as well.
That breakaway there was led over the top by Alessandro Bertolini from Sedimenti, and Pablo Lestras was just behind him. Tiziano Dell'Antonia, we saw him in the break a couple of days ago. He was over in 3rd. Jussi Väikkönen in Finland and Laurent Mangel. That was the situation. They are clear now, as you can see. This is the sprint here. And the weather, the good roads have been beautiful racing route this without the bad weather, but they've got to be careful on the way down.
Well, in fact, just looking here, this is a little bit of pressure being put on by Team LPR here on the front end. Looking back there to see what sort of damage is being done. In fact, I have a feeling we've got a little bit of a split going on. These are the chasers in Sigutori, and LPR are certainly all over the front of this. It's obviously been a very nasty climb.
Well, it's also a very nasty day, and the riders now are going to try and nibble a little bit more off the lead here of Visconti before they get up north. And LPR, this is a good day for the killer, and I think Danilo Di Luca will enjoy this as best he can. He's in 2nd place there. Memory of Marco Pantani as the gap continues to count. And no sign of this weather abating at all.
Not at all. A nasty day. 4 minutes and 25 seconds and counting, and they've still got to get to the top of this climb, yep. At which point we'll get a definite identification on what the advantage of those 4 leaders is, 5 leaders. I think I just noticed Alberto Contador in the group. A little bit of picture break-up as we go through the trees and the rain. It's always very difficult on a day like this to keep the pictures nice and steady. As they get to the top of the climb, it's going to be pretty close, Phil, to around about the 5-minute mark.
Oh, that's a very good breakaway. And on weather like this, it might go all the way to the finish because these boys will just keep an eye on themselves. Just on 5 minutes to the summit there, just over 5 minutes. Danilo Di Luca zipping up his black cape. We are hearing, in fact, the Maurizio Sola, and we haven't seen him. Verti had that crash very early on and took away all hope. Has apparently abandoned the race. So I'm not surprised. I think there'll be a few go out today.
A nasty day, and if you've got a slight injury when you are on the bike in a day like this, it really is very difficult to pluck up the courage sometimes to continue. And I think Maurizio Soler, the star of the Tour de France last year, Phil, will be thinking about getting himself ready for the month of July. And I believe he's really been pained by an injury to his wrist. Yep. And that seems to be the problem, although he did bang up his knee quite badly as well in that crash in the first week.
Well, all the action started pretty early on today at around about 35 kilometres. The breakaway settling down and getting clear. Pablo Rastas, Laurent Mangel, Tiziano Dell'Antonio, Jussi Verkonen, Alessandro Bertolini. The peloton sort of let them go. They didn't really chase them, although the average speed, despite the weather, as we get in the way of the descent, is around about 42 kilometres an hour. So it was quite a quick start, despite conditions.
Well, that was Danilo Di Luca in person setting them on the descent. Not too far away from the front, Andreas Kloden was there, and also Alberto Contador. But there has been a split in the main field, although, Phil, away, I think with these weather conditions, we'll see quite a few riders making the junction on the descent.
Well, I can't see this breakaway being brought back, you know, Paul, simply because there's nobody in it that affects the overall leaderboard. And so why on a day like this take any risk at all, providing you're alongside your rivals?
That's the important thing. As I keep saying, it is important to look over the 3 weeks of a race like this. We've got 3 or 4 very difficult days to come, but to me the hardest part of the Giro d'Italia is the last 4 or 5 days when we've got some massive mountains in the Dolomites and in the Alps.
And Sella will be losing out on his King of the Mountains scores today. Look at that, the group Magliarosa at 7:18, the chasing group at 5:05. So it looks as though Visconti is set to lose perhaps as high as 4, maybe even 5 minutes if that group settles in. So there is a reason for them to chase now and get rid of Visconti.
Just looking at the leading group there, that's the leading group of 5 riders. Mangel, Pablo Lastras is a good man to think about getting the victory. Dell'Antonio. Verkonen is in there as well. He's the rider from Française des Jeux, and just getting onto the back as well, we noticed one of the riders from Team Lampre.
Descending with a little bit of caution on these wet roads. Plenty of gaps between the riders. Nobody in a hurry, and that's why when you get down the road you see how dangerous they are as they lock out on the inside of that bend there. Nobody taking any chances whatsoever, but even in these conditions the crowds are still watching.
Yeah, the Italians, they love their Giro. They turn out to support it wherever it goes through the country of Italy, whether it's in the high mountains or the low valleys. And on days like this, you really have to be courageous, even just to be a spectator, to come out and support the riders.
Well, there's a view of the descent, as we all take a little bit of precaution. Oh, and somebody hasn't. Somebody's crashed there, hit the barriers.
It's a rider from Liquigas.
Yeah.
Can't quite see who it was, but he doesn't seem to be too panicked, does he?
No, he looks okay.
This is the group of the Maglia Rosa. I can't see the Maglia Rosa, but all over the front of it, you can see the riders from Quickstep are there. And they're obviously trying to pace their man back into the Maglia Rosa. Let's not forget he had pretty much an advantage of around about 7 minutes over his closest rival, who is turning out to be Alberto Contador now. But Danilo Di Luca was around about 7.5 minutes. Here, they've all gone back to help their man Giovanni Visconti to try and keep him in the Maglia Rosa for another day. And it's going to be a long, hard ride in the saddle for these guys.
Look at the low cloud here. And very unpleasant weather. This isn't the weather we normally get in Italy, or when we get up to the mountains it can go either way. We've even had snow in the Dolomites in years gone by. Andy Hampson's victory was not the best of weather up in the Dolomites, as we go right into the mist and a whiteout. This is that rider, and in fact I think it's Dario Cataldo of Liquigas who just hits the barriers. Not really a very good image there, is it?
Yeah, interesting. Oh, he's going backwards
all
now.
The pixels have gone up the wall.
Yes.
But take our word for it, there's a green rider in green trees and he's just hit that barrier, and I'm pretty certain it's Dario Cataldo. Meanwhile, back with Team LPR. Not sure who we're with here now.
This is probably in the breakaway, in fact.
It's Bosisio, yeah.
Yep.
3rd overall.
Yeah. 5 minutes and 50 seconds now. I don't know exactly where he is on the road at the moment, but he's obviously getting a little bit of help from the team car there.
I'm pretty sure he's come back from that group, which has De Luca in. But we'll see. Sebastian Sela. No, it's just Navigari here as they continue on the ride of their own.
These are the 5 leading riders now.
This is Dell'Antonio in the leading group here. That looks like Fortunato Balliani.
Yep, you recognise him. We've seen him racing all over the world. Always a very aggressive rider in races like the Tour de Langkawi in the very early part of the year. In fact, he for a very long time was a member of the Cell'Italia squad. And you can see the Cell'Italia rider on the front of this group here, and that in fact is Alessandro Bertolini. There's another crash.
You see, they're taking no respect to these roads here, and they're just tumbling off. This is Mauricio Ardilla, the Colombian rider. He's not really done much since he won the Tour of Britain a couple of years ago, and he hasn't really won many races at all.
No, he's a rider who a lot of people feel has got a great ability to climb, but
Completely
you see,
wrong into that corner, wasn't he?
absolutely, and he just lost it trying to correct it going around that corner. Another crash here, and I think that's Vanberger who's gone down on the left. It looks like Seller as well,
Good
the leader of the
above.
King of the Mountains.
And the roads are even drived out just at the moment, it seems.
Also down there as well. It looks as if
Vanberger.
It looks as if that's Leonardo Pipoli on the left. 159, it is Pipoli. He's a big teammate to Riccò. Now, this is a massive crash that's gone down here, and it's probably because as we go into this tree
That's the
section...
pink jersey.
Well, yes, he is too. Well, he's not having a great day.
Well, we just came upon that crash, as you see. Our camera's just, luckily, we had a camera back there. It must have been following the group because it was the pink jersey group. They've all gone down, and we'll see how they get out of that. But he's back up and running now. This is Del Antonio again.
Well, the weather's starting to change now for the better. It's become a slightly clearer day. Testa della Corsa, the front end of the bike race. As you can see, this rider on the front here is doing an impressive ride here. I think that is Del Antonio from Navigari. At the back, the other rider is Fortunato Baliani.
Yep. 3, 4, 5 riders clear.
And that's UC Vaikkonen, the Finnish rider from Française des Jeux in the white jersey with the club on the front of it.
Well, at least we can see them now because they've submitted to the sun for a change, whipped off those racing capes. This is over the third category climb, the Sorivoli, 174 kilometres. The clock should start on that for us. 25 kilometres to go to the finish. And there's a little flashback here to that certainly looks as though Pipoli might be out of the race the way he sat on the roadside there.
Well, that's Pipoli and Emmanuel Seller have
It
both
really
gone down
caught
this.
them all, didn't it?
And the biggest damage really done to the Maglia Rosa, because he really is going to have a hard time trying to keep that Maglia Rosa on his on his shoulders here this afternoon. There's a confirmation of the pink jersey. I think he's got a teammate there with him to try and pace him back into the group. Now, they must have been taking a lot of risks, Phil, on the descent, trying to get themselves back into the leading group.
Well, it was unwise, whatever they did, and it certainly looks as though he might lose more time now because he's got nobody with him whatsoever. This group here is of no particular worry to anybody because there's nobody high enough up overall to steal pink or even make the top 10. But they're going for the stage win. Del Antonio doing a lot of work here. We've still got Pablo Lestras in there somewhere. He's in third place at the moment in the Case de Pan jersey. Fortunato Baliani. This is Bertolini. Stares straight in the camera.
Very concentrated. The riders from Navigari have got the biggest opportunity here because there's two of them in this leading group. Fortunato Baliani, no stranger to long breakaways like this. He's the man who's on the front, and he'll be looking to try and get some points in the King of the Mountains classification, although his teammate Emmanuel Seller is the man who's actually leading that. Rider from Rabobank, Ardilla.
Yeah, he's also fallen, of course. Look at his shorts. We saw him go down. And that's a sympathetic applause from the crowd here. He's quite a way back now and not enjoying the race at all. How narrow these roads are.
They are really tough racing roads here this afternoon. That was a quick glimpse there of the Maglia Rosa group. This is the leading group, and there's a move by Pablo Lestras. He's not going to wait.
To be predicted, I think. He's on his own and he's going to get chased down. Well, Fortunato Baliani will fancy his chances here. The hills are no trouble to him whatsoever. He's a very good climber. And if they think Lestras is just going for the top of the climb, they'll be wrong. He's going for gold here.
Yeah, he was trying to catch everybody unawares there, but he's been pulled back into the fold by the two riders from Navigari. Then just getting onto the back there is Bertolini in the white jersey of Selle Italia. It's another team that's always been aggressive. Levi Leipheimer was involved in that crash as well there, Phil, because he's trying to get back there with Leonardo Pipoli. So Pipoli is back in the race, but I tell you what, it would seem to me they're having a hard time pulling themselves back in. And that was the group that was a little bit further back, because there's the Maglia Rosa. You can see he's completely ripped up on the right-hand side. He's got Paolo Bettini with him. He really is having a hard day at the office this afternoon.
Well, Bettini's a strong-willed. He's dropped back, I think, to try and help him back into their action here. Again, all this is detracting from the breakaway, who are continuing to lead this race. And again, I'm not too sure they're even going to be picked up here, because they've still got about 4 minutes on that main field at least. We're waiting for a further time check.
But that acceleration from Lastras has actually reduced this leading breakaway field down to just 4 riders. 2 in there from Navigari. Sitting on the back there, Bertolini from Sella Italia.
Yeah,
Lastras
gone.
Lastras now has decided that 4 is a lot better than 6.
Vaikkonen and Mangel, Frenchman and the Finnish rider, have gone. So that leaves Del Antonio, Pablo Lastras, Garcia, Baliani, Bertolini. Those are the 4 now who got away on that climb. The other 2 didn't answer the call of Pablo Lastras. They're out of it at the moment. Little bit of reorganisation forming at the back here now.
This is the second group of chasers, so I presume this is the group that's got the Maglia Rosa trying to get back into it. Back up with the 4 leaders. Pulling back here, the fact that the team cars are right behind them there with the referees' cars, Phil, would indicate that they're at least 30 seconds ahead of the riders who were initially in this breakaway group. So we're now down to just 4 men. And we're looking now at around about 20 kilometres to go to the finish.